Once upon a time, there existed a pair of twins born with the miraculous ability to weep gemstones. While the elder sister shed tears in moments of sorrow, the younger sister's eyes welled up only in times of joy. Hidden within those crystalline tears was a mystical power coveted by all. Driven by insatiable greed, their own father cast the elder sister away, condemning her to be locked within the cold walls of a desolate castle for many years. Bound by heavy shackles and draped in filthy, tattered rags for an eternity, her sole purpose was to weep, to cry endlessly, forced to produce those precious glittering gems for her captors. Her father never relented, subjecting her to a never-ending cycle of mistreatment, beatings, and brutal torture. In harrowing contrast to the elder sister's living nightmare, the younger twin was pampered like royalty, adorned in exquisite silks, and lived a life of blissful luxury. The younger sister's greatest source of amusement was witnessing the systematic torment of her own flesh and blood. With a gaze as cold as ice, every time their father appeared, the tragic cycle of her existence would unfold once more. Let's put an end to this, Ingrid. It was his very first visit since imprisoning her in the tower. She looked up at him with eyes brimming with desperate hope, fantasizing that since he had finally come, her days of agonizing pain were finally at an end. She trembled, asking, "Is it true? Is it finally true, father?" He reached down to snatch up a fallen gemstone and declared, "That's right, we are terminating this futile labor immediately. This is no mere trinket. Deep within its core lies a hidden, formidable power." But his dark ambition knew no bounds. "You understand these gemstones better than anyone, don't you, Ingrid? You know exactly when the most breathtaking gem is birthed." He stepped aside to reveal a man clutching a massive blade. "Father, who is that man?" Without a word, she was seized by her hair and violently slammed onto the cold ground by the executioner. The image of a fragile girl on the brink of ultimate tragedy. He ground Ingrid's head into the dirt, crushing her beneath his weight. The gemstone forged at the precise moment of death is a truly peerless masterpiece. Furthermore, your tears harbor a massive power never before witnessed. The prosperity of the Jandon family rests entirely on your shoulders. Faced with these heartless words from her own kin, she shrieked, "Father, I can still be useful. Please, father. From now on, I'll cry even more. Even if the pain is unbearable, I will endure it all. I'll strive to be worthy, father." To her desperate pleas, he coldly replied, "If you truly care for this family, then be a good little girl and submit." He then immediately commanded the man to pin her down for the final execution. The man asked, "Shall I shroud her head?" "No. Leave her face exposed. If moisture soaks into the cloth, the transformation into a gemstone will be hindered." The absolute peak of depravity was woven into that single command. Kill her. In her final moments, she looked up and discovered that the younger sister she once trusted was wearing a chillingly radiant smile. She wondered why she was smiling in the face of death. The very second her life was snuffed out, a blood-red gemstone materialized, glowing with a brilliant, eerie light that engulfed the entire tower. But it didn't end there. Time itself warped and rewound. When she awoke, she was back in that wretched tower, gasping for air as the phantom sensation of death lingered. Initially, she prayed it was a dream, but her family proceeded to slaughter her countless times, and though the methods changed, the brutality remained constant. Every time the blade fell, she would weep. That final, ultimate gemstone would trigger the reversal of time. She never asked for this curse. It was because of that very power that she was denied the mercy of death. "I truly can't endure this any longer. If you're going to kill me, just finish it for good." But at that moment, her younger sister came to visit. Only in the shadows of their solitude did the younger twins' true twisted persona emerge. "I'm so thrilled to be alone with you like this, sister. When others are around, I have to play the role of the perfect girl. It's honestly quite boring." In a fit of excitement, Elier whispered to Ingrid, "You know, as long as I speak the word, father listens to everything I say. Even regarding your fate, if I mention it, father becomes very interested indeed." "Elier! What are you saying? What?" Elier pressed her hand against Ingrid's bruised face and cooed, "You look like you're in such agony. By the way," she casually sliced a blade across Ingrid's cheek. Ingrid realized then that every time she bled, Elier was consumed with joy. The reason was simple, though. They were twins. Only the elder sister possessed the power to forge those magnificent gemstones, even if it's purely through my weeping. So I manipulated father by claiming that the most exquisite gemstone is forged only at the exact moment of death. That was all a lie, wasn't it, Elier? While her sister wallowed in agony, Elier became increasingly manic. "Sister, that expression of yours is truly divine. The elder sister weeps in sorrow, while the younger sister weeps in joy. Please just die for the sake of my happiness, my loathsome sister." She used to believe that if she were slaughtered, at least it served her family, but just like every time before, her father summoned the man with the massive blade and asked, "Are you finished with your goodbyes, Elier?" None of them possessed the slightest inkling of the time regression. And yet, she was murdered repeatedly, all to satisfy Elier's twisted selfishness. Ingrid finally realized the depth of her own delusion, imprisoned for years in this wretched dungeon, treated as nothing more than a mindless beast. To seek a justification for her own execution was truly, at the moment the veil was lifted. She glared at her twin, who was grinning gleefully at her demise, and spat, "Elier, I despise you too." She vowed to herself that she would never shed another tear that wasn't of her own choosing. And perhaps this marked the final appearance of that gem and the last time the tower would glow. Once more she regressed, still bound in chains. But this time, she retained every harrowing memory from her previous lives. She snatched up a black gemstone, harnessing its dark power to shatter her shackles. She utilized a sapphire blue stone to instantly mend her physical wounds. Stretching her limbs, she prepared for a fresh start in this new reincarnation. In a rare moment of defiance, she actually cracked a smile and slept peacefully upon that tattered rug. The following morning, she was rudely awakened by a maid with a sneering, arrogant expression. Kicking the door open, the woman shrieked, "How long do you intend to rot there? Get up this instant." Normally, she would force Ingrid to stand submissively in a corner, before scouring the floor for any trace of discarded gemstones. She would use her broom to strike her while hurling insults, occasionally making lethal threats, beating her and cackling with sadistic delight at her terrified expression. 6 years had passed since her imprisonment in this tower. The Jandon family was famed for their gemstone tears, possessing 2 daughters gifted with the power. In their youth, Ingrid was the one constantly weeping while Elier was always wreathed in smiles. Their father reserved all his affection for the younger sister, who played the part of a perfect angel, while she was condemned to a life of forced sorrow day after grueling day. No different from a golden goose trapped in a cage. Nonetheless, while her mother lived, she was permitted to roam the mansion. 6 years ago, her mother perished from a plague, and the family announced to the world that she too had died alongside her mother, exploiting her tears under her sister's name to make Elier the darling of society, all because Elier's tears were mere pebbles compared to her own. "Are you listening, you worthless scum? Move it!" The piercing shout shattered her train of thought. Honestly, being forced to trek to the peak of the tower every morning just to retrieve gems she was forbidden from using. For the first time, Ingrid showed teeth. "You're being far too loud. If that's your attitude, then you shouldn't have bothered coming here at all. How dare you?" The maid hoisted her broom to get physical, but in a blurred flash, Ingrid produced a black stone and pressed it against the broom's handle. The wood instantly disintegrated into ash. She then leveled the stone at the maid's throat. "Do you wish to end up the same way?" The maid's face drained of all color instantly. "No, my lady." "Is that so? Then how about you start following my orders? First, bring me a set of pristine clothes I won't be seen in these rags, and then draw a hot bath. After that, I shall emerge." The maid stammered, But... Lady Ingrid is strictly forbidden from leaving this chamber." Coldly, she held the dark stone aloft and inquired, "Do you prefer turning into ash or a simple scolding? Choose the one you can live with. I will prepare everything immediately." A moment later, she emerged from the tower, draped in a stunning gown, boldly marching toward the mansion without a shred of doubt, thrusting the doors open to the utter shock of every maid in sight. At that precise second, the head maid stepped forward to obstruct her path. "Why have you descended? Who granted you such liberty?" In her past, Ingrid had been paralyzed with fear by this woman. This hag used to employ glowing red-hot iron rods to inflict agonizing torture upon her. The searing wounds had caused her such excruciating pain that she found it impossible to even close her eyes. As she attempted to brush past, the woman yanked her back. "Hey, you dare ignore me! Step aside," she retorted. "I have an appointment to keep." Just then, Elier sauntered out of her chambers, rubbing her eyes with feigned sleepiness. "Ugh, I can't locate the dress I plan to wear today." Their gazes locked. Though seething with inner rage, Elier masked it with a friendly facade and hurried downstairs. "Big sister, why are you here?" "Wait, that's my gown. Why are you wearing it?" "A prestigious guest arrives today, so everyone prepared that specifically for me." Eager to suck up to Elier, the head maid branded Ingrid a common thief and vowed she would forcibly strip the dress from her. Ingrid mused to herself that every luxury in this cursed house was bought with the price of her tears. Seeing the woman loom closer, she warned, "I told you to move, didn't I?" The woman, still oblivious to her place, shrieked, "Know your rank." Conveniently, a crowd had gathered, making it the ideal stage to dispense some discipline. She sneered, "I'll report this to the master." "Oh, really?" In her palm, she revealed a black diamond. The power of a black diamond is absolute suppression. On anyone else, it would be useless. Only the gem's creator can unleash its latent power. With a mere touch, a nearby vase instantly disintegrated into ash. Witnessing the carnage, the head maid collapsed, her limbs trembling uncontrollably. The guards and surrounding maids stood paralyzed, terrified by the gemstone's lethal special ability. "Snitch to your heart's content," she remarked, then tossed the gem toward Elier, nearly scaring the life out of her. She genuinely thought she was about to be reduced to ash. Savoring their terror, she flashed a satisfied smirk and headed straight upstairs. Elier was vibrating with fury, but didn't dare retaliate because there were too many witnesses present. To preserve her fragile image, she feigned a pathetic weakness. So terrifying. Instantly, the swarm of maids rushed to her side to offer desperate comfort. "Miss Elier, are you all right, Miss Elier? Keep that monster away from the young lady." Originally, Elier was always pampered because she could only produce a single type of gem. Its power was temptation. It was through that insidious magic that Ingrid had once loved her younger sister so unconditionally. The more someone adored her, the more susceptible they were to her enchantment. Ingrid only realized this truth through the clarity of death, dying, and being resurrected countless times. Reflecting on it now, her past devotion was pathetic. Guided by the shadows of her previous lives, she went directly to a specific room. Swinging the door open, she stepped inside to find a maid wasting away from illness. Her presence announced by a long, hollow, and never-ending cough. Recalling her past, she had formed a bond with Abby, a fresh-faced maid who had only recently arrived at the manor. Back then, Abby had brought her food, but because the raw wounds from the previous day's lashing still burned, she couldn't stomach a bite. Abby had urged, "Lady Ingrid, skipping your meals is strictly forbidden." "Did you weep this much through the night, milady?" Glancing at the gems scattered in her hand, she fretted, "My lady, you must nourish yourself or you'll succumb to dehydration." Abby brushed the gems aside to tend to her. "Forgive me, milady, I only have my apron to wipe your face." "Thank you." That simple act of kindness from Abby had been her only solace. From that day on, Abby was tasked with collecting the gems. Never once did she strike or berate her choosing, instead to offer warmth and conversation. Sharing her story, she mentioned that in her village she also had an elder sister named Gemma, who possessed an incredibly gentle soul. And since her sister was nearly the same age as Lady Ingrid, Abby felt a deep sadness whenever the lady was unhappy. Treating the young lady as my own sister is a bit overstepping, isn't it? Terrified that if the daily yield of gems dwindled, Abby would be barred from returning. Every single night, Ingrid forced herself to dwell on the most heartbreaking thoughts and wept uncontrollably just to ensure there were enough gemstones to keep Abby near. But every spark of joy has its expiration. A cruel tragedy struck when their secret bond was discovered by Elier, and from that day forward, Abby never returned. After pleading with the replacement maid who came for the gems, she received only stony silence regarding Abby's fate. Instead, she was met with curses and another brutal beating. From that point on, the dark days of being tormented by the other maids returned in full force. But by clinging to the memory of Abby's smile, she found the strength to endure the pain. She comforted herself with the thought that Abby had returned home to be with her sister. That would be enough. But it was a lie. At that moment, Elier sauntered in with a beaming face. "Sister Ingrid, look at the fascinating gift I've brought for you." The silhouette of a man carrying a heavy burden stood before her. When he unceremoniously dumped the load from his shoulder, Ingrid's heart stopped in pure horror. Startled, she realized it was Abby now, in a critical state of collapse, clinging to life with weak, shallow, and ragged breaths. Elier casually mentioned that Abby was wasting away from a terminal illness. "Sister, I simply wanted her to see a familiar face one last time, so I exerted the effort to bring her here." Ingrid gathered Abby into her protective embrace and demanded of Elier, "Have you summoned a doctor? Where is her medicine?" Elier replied with chilling indifference, "Do the ailments of the poor even warrant a cure, sister?" "Elier, I am begging you, call a physician. Her sister is waiting for her return home." "Gems, take as many as you want, I'm begging you." Elier sneered that unfortunately her pleas were hollow, since Abby had already breathed her last. Accompanied by those frigid, heartless words was her twisted, joyful expression as she looked down at Abby's corpse. Ingrid wailed, sobbing convulsively, "Abby, why aren't you breathing? Wake up! Your sister is waiting for you to come home." But the only response was the sound of countless gemstones clattering onto the cold floor. So tragic, sister. It seems everyone who crosses your path meets a gruesome end, don't they? Only then did the crushing realization hit Ingrid, because she had cherished Abby. The girl was marked for death. If only she had mastered the gems in her previous life. In this timeline, she refused to let Abby slip away. She showered Abby's body with vibrant green gems, igniting their restorative essence to save her. An emerald radiance erupted. Moments later, Abby gasped for air, and the glowing stones faded into a dull black. "Lady Ingrid, why are you here? I feel okay. The agony is gone." "It's all over now, Abby." Ingrid knew she had to evacuate the girl immediately. This place was a death trap. "Can you walk, Abby?" "Yes." Suddenly, a mysterious young man appeared asking, "Need a hand?" "Not from you." And with that cold dismissal, the two brushed past one another. Wow, how icy. This man was Sasa, the VVIP Elier had mentioned earlier. Having overheard the commotion from his sweet curiosity led him to witness Ingrid's miraculous healing. Seeing Abby revived Elier instantly flipped the script, feigning concern. What happened to that poor maid? If we don't grant her rest, she won't recover, Elier. There is no longer a need for your doctors or your useless medicine. Elier panicked, realizing she had to shove Ingrid back into the tower before their distinguished guest saw too much. She unleashed her temptation magic to ensnare her sister. "Please return to your cage. Defying family protocol is forbidden, sister." But that pathetic enchantment no longer held any sway over Ingrid. She snapped, "How long do you intend to stand there? You're in my way." Elier stood frozen, unable to process the failure, since her magic had worked perfectly just yesterday. Why was it failing now? To Sasa, Ingrid's newfound aura felt like the opening act of a gripping drama. The man stepped forward to join the spectacle. The moment Elier spotted him, she switched to her sweet angel persona. "Lord Sasa, I was just coming to see you after checking on this maid. Whatever brings you here, I went for a stroll and lost my way. Is that so? If it pleases you, allow me to be your guide." But Sasa blew past her offer like a fleeting breeze. "I'm actually glad I got lost." He stepped up to greet Ingrid with a flourish. "Pardon my intrusion. I am Sasa. Might Milady be the twin of Lady Cornelia, or perhaps Ingrid the name of the sister who supposedly passed away? It seems you have an excellent memory. How could I not? I'm a devoted admirer of the gemstone tears. Besides, Milady possesses eyes like priceless jewels identical to Lady Cornelia's. I couldn't possibly be mistaken." Elier was practically gnashing her teeth, seething at being treated like background noise. Desperate for the spotlight, she rushed to Ingrid's side. "My sister is a bit fragile, so she rarely leaves her room." Just then, a summons arrived. Their father demanded their presence. Now, Elier was frantic to get Ingrid out of Sasa's sight. Terrified he'd realize Ingrid was the true source of the high-grade gems. "Father is calling, sister. Let's go together." "Tell father I'll attend when I'm good and ready." "Sister, this stubbornness is unbecoming. Let's go. I'll handle the talking for you." Suddenly, how fascinating. Lady Cornelia's eyes are striking, but Milady's are on a whole different level. Truly like raw gemstones. I wonder if those captivating eyes are why the sisters are at odds. Sasa persisted, tailing her. "Did no one teach you that poking your nose into others' business is height of rudeness? It's just that the disparity in your treatment is so glaring. One roams the estate while the other is confined to a tower. It seems your tutors were quite incompetent." "Indeed, I am a woman without rank or power." "Even so. For Milady, my estate might prove far more hospitable than this place. What do you say? Would Milady care to be a guest at the Beansmith Manor? I'll consider it, but only when I feel like moving." "Aha! The same defiant answer. Let's go, Abby. We're packing your things so you can go home." "But the master just summoned you, Milady." "He can wait." After securing Abby's departure, she finally faced her father. He barked, "Do you have any idea what you're doing right now?" "I simply visited a sick servant. Surely you aren't berating me for an act of charity." "This is about more than that. Did you really intend to use those gemstones to assault Elier?" From the moment she first gained consciousness until now, she had lived in absolute terror of that cold, judgmental gaze. Despite the abuse, she had once naively hoped to be loved just as much as Elier. Recalling his fondness for flowers, she had once painstakingly woven a floral crown for him, convinced it would finally win his affection. But when she brought it to his study, "Father, did you pluck these from the garden without my authorization?" "I'm sorry. I only wanted to make father happy, so I'm so sorry." But his only interest had been the gemstones that spilled from her weeping eyes during his scolding. Even now, no matter how much she pondered it, she couldn't fathom why she was so utterly loathed. "Answer me, Ingrid. It seems father is laboring under a delusion. I was merely defending myself against a bully. I haven't harmed Elier or anyone else." "Ingrid, you dare talk back. Look at your sister. Look at how she trembles." "Elier, there's no need for the dramatics because this entire mess is your own doing." "How can you speak to her like that?" "Father, please don't be angry with sister. She's likely just overwhelmed after being out of the tower for so long. Father, shouldn't we just send her back to her room quickly?" Elier dialed up her temptation to manipulate their father's rage. "Elier, your heart is too kind. Ingrid, as a mage of the Jandon bloodline, your only thought should be the prosperity of this clan." Wasting time on a dying maid is beneath your station. First of all, by what right do you lecture me the daughters of Jandon inherit the gemstone tears? Our prosperity literally flows from me. Furthermore, Elier's tears are worthless dross. Normally, father, you shouldn't be barking orders, you should be on your knees begging. If you can't manage that simple courtesy, then I have no reason to remain in this family. Do you realize the weight of those words? I do. As of this moment, my debt is paid. From the hallway, Sasa caught the echoes of the fiery confrontation. He pushed the door open and strolled in. Apologies for the intrusion. I don't recall inviting you in. Forgive me for being fashionably late. The shouting was so loud I couldn't help but overhear. Might I suggest a solution? Yes, let the Beansmith family take guardianship of Lady Ingrid. That is the proposal. Predictably, he spat on Sasa's offer. He scoffed. If Ingrid goes to your manor, she'll be nothing but a burden. I'm sure she whined and begged for this, didn't she? Ever since she was a brat, she's been impossible. You have to tell her 1,000 times before she listens. I've suffered enough dealing with that wretched personality. That is entirely incorrect. This invitation is solely my own initiative. In fact, Lady Ingrid informed me that your consent is not required. She is a remarkably independent and sophisticated lady. Do you even grasp the implications of what you're saying? Her life at this mansion is perfectly sufficient. There is zero reason for her to relocate to another estate. You claim her life is sufficient. Then why is Lady Ingrid's body so painfully frail? What was that? And I must mention one more thing. How do you explain the fact that she isn't dead, but standing here in the flesh? Lady Ingrid is a mage with a legendary power, yet the kingdom's official registry doesn't even list her name. He claimed that as the patriarch and a father protecting his daughter, his hand was forced into secrecy. Ingrid vividly recalled every atrocity he had committed, yet he still possessed the audacity to spew those hypocritical lies with a straight face. He declared that if Lord Sasa wished to maintain a cordial bond with the Jandon family, he should cease meddling in their private affairs. Seeing an opening, Elier rushed to Sasa's side, cooing, "Lord Sasa, I've always dreamed of visiting your estate." Sasa simply raised a hand, wreathed in flickering flames, toward her, signaling a cold and absolute rejection. He firmly stated that his only interest lay in strengthening his ties with Ingrid. Turning back to her, Sasa asked, "Milady, would you be willing to accept my humble invitation?" Witnessing Sasa's earnest sincerity, yet feeling the weight of Elier and her father's gaze, she pivoted to a different strategy. "My father has spoken. Therefore, regardless of my personal desires, I cannot defy his will." Ingrid remarked that since she hadn't spoken this much in years, she was thoroughly exhausted and requested to retire for the evening. Ingrid mused to herself that the time to strike had not yet arrived. A week later, she commissioned a luxurious carriage to escort Abby back to her village. "Board quickly and promise me you'll prioritize your health all right." The girl appeared absolutely radiant with joy, as it was her very first time riding in such a high-end, extravagant carriage. "Lady Ingrid, I can never thank you enough." Glancing back and seeing Ingrid standing solitary against the mansion, Abby reached out to grasp her hand. "Lady Ingrid, what about you? What path will you take from here on out?" Ingrid replied that she was still waiting, biding her time for the perfect opening. After sending Abby off with a pouch of precious gems, she prayed the girl would find true happiness with her sister. Seizing a rare moment of freedom during the daylight hours, Ingrid ventured out into the city to purchase a wardrobe of her own. Over the past few days, her schedule had been so frantic that she'd been forced to temporarily inhabit Elier's old clothes. Now standing amidst the finery of the shop, she realized one must wear garments that truly belonged to them to find peace of mind. This was the first moment she had ever chosen clothes she actually liked for herself. The first time her feet had ever graced these bustling streets. She simply wandered, drifting through the crowds without a specific destination in mind. Eventually, her gaze was captivated by a magnificent hot air balloon carriage, and she came to a halt before it. It was the very thing Elier used to boast about, claiming she had soared in it with their parents. She stepped closer, yearning to experience that freedom just once. However, the entrance was currently barred and locked tight. The sight of that locked door triggered a rush of agonizing childhood traumas. Years ago, she had been similarly trapped behind a bolted door left in the dark. She had wailed until her voice gave out, "Is anyone there? Please open the door. I'll cry. I'll be a good girl. Just don't lock me in here." "Father, open the door." Just as she began to turn away, intending to retreat, another hand holding a skeleton key reached past her. Startled, she spun around to find herself face to face with a breathtakingly handsome man. A cold, striking heartthrob stood there before her. He remarked, "This vessel won't yield without a key." The door creaked open, yet Ingrid remained rooted to the spot, completely dazed. She was busy analyzing who the stranger was and if he managed the grounds. Then he asked, "Are you coming aboard or not?" Naturally, she accepted his hand for assistance, maintaining her noble poise as they sat together. Then she attempted a sly glance at him, but when he caught her eye, she jumped and whipped her head toward the window. To break the awkward tension, she blurted out honestly, "Oh my God, how absolutely massive the moon looked tonight." In truth, she was mesmerized by the ethereal beauty of the nocturnal landscape. Whether it was the moon viewed from her prison tower or the moon seen from this soaring carriage, the glow remained unchanged. It was always radiant. However, this vast, boundless sky was a spectacle she was witnessing for the very first time in her lives. It felt as though a bird confined to a rusted iron cage was finally spreading its wings to soar, a bittersweet cocktail of joy and grief. In that moment, tears welled up and a crystalline gemstone fell. She lunged to catch it. Phew, that was a close call. She nearly fumbled a massive bag of emeralds. Kidding aside, exposing her secret identity to a total stranger like this would be a complete disaster. A silent arm extended toward her, offering a silken handkerchief, plus 1 point for that smooth, gentlemanly move. Lending a handkerchief without uttering a single word, this man was undeniably mysterious. Staring out at the infinite horizon, she vowed to herself that she could succeed. She would truly start over in this life. Then Ingrid's unbothered attitude resurfaced in full force. When she needed a hand up, she let him assist her, but the moment she was done, she shot him a look of pure judgment. She muttered a curt, "Excuse me," and marched straight away without looking back, leaving the bewildered young man standing there in total silence. Returning to her tower, she peered out the window and whispered, "It happens tonight." A moment later, precisely as predicted, a purple-haired figure known as a master thief materialized outside. He flashed a smirk of ultimate confidence, imagining that behind that heavy door lay an innocent, naive princess fast asleep. Less than a heartbeat after that thought, she was already standing directly behind him. "Isn't the moonlight a bit too revealing for you tonight, Gaspar?" He froze, unable to comprehend how she knew his name. Then she raised a glowing black stone toward him. "Don't even twitch." "I'm not moving a muscle." Recalling the first time I encountered him, it was during my 8th loop through time. In that life, I was absolutely paralyzed with terror when he materialized out of thin air. Back then, he swore he meant me no harm, urging me not to be afraid. Gazing at the mountain of gemstones forged from my agony, he couldn't fathom why I was trembling so violently. But when you're rotting in a sunless tower with zero clue about the world, fear is basically your only roommate. He nonchalantly swiped a few gems and offered me his hand. "Come now, don't waste away in this tomb any longer. Escape into the world with me, I vow to protect you." Back then, my only response was, "Please never let me see your face again." "I hear you. I won't cross your path ever again. I promise, just stay healthy, all right?" Stay healthy. Those words were nothing but a cruel, empty sentiment. Because shortly after that encounter, I was brutally murdered once more. Returning to the present, Gaspar holds up his hands. All right, I get it. Easy there, don't glare at me with those killer eyes." I yield. "So, how do you want to play this gift wrap me for your father or take my head before the sun rises? Is that truly the fate you're rooting for? There's no way you're letting me walk. Fine, I'll be your puppet. Whatever you command, I'm your man. You'd better stick to that script." Instantly, he dropped to one knee like a devoted knight swearing a blood oath. He declared, "I promise, take as many jewels as your heart desires. In exchange, you're going to do one little thing for me." Cut to the next morning, her father is losing his absolute mind. He's frantically tearing the room apart to find the purple amethyst he always keeps close. Right on cue, Ingrid strolls in. "Morning, father. Did you have sweet dreams last night?" He spins around to find her dangling the very stone he's hunting for. He demands to know how she got it. She claims she just woke up to find it sitting on her nightstand. Last night, the task she gave Gaspar was to liberate that purple amethyst from her father's clutches. That stone was her grandmother's final parting tear. Being a tear shed at the brink of death, it harbors a legendary power, the ability to nullify anyone wielding magic for malice. She had even lost her life to the power of that stone once before. After being trapped in a death loop and dying 1,000 ways, she had completely snapped, reaching the breaking point where she slaughtered Elier and the maid right where they stood. In that dark moment, she just wanted the entire world to burn into nothingness along with her. She fully intended to turn her father into a pile of ash as well, but at the final second, she was thwarted by that very amethyst. Ultimately, she was executed on charges of murdering her own sister. As long as he holds that stone, she's destined to be a prisoner in this tower for eternity. Which is why the night before, she hired Gaspar, the legendary phantom thief, to steal it. Seeing the gem in her grasp, he immediately forces a charming smile. "Ah, thank you for retrieving it for me." Father knows the truth, doesn't he? The amethyst's little secret, it withers and dies when exposed to the light. Ingrid, that stone is priceless to me. Stop this nonsense and hand it over this instant. Since the day grandmother passed, you've never let it leave your sight. If I recall, it's quite fragile, isn't it? She reached for the heavy golden lamp on the desk. Seeing her movement, he hits the panic button. What do you think you're doing with that? In one fluid, ruthless motion, she pins the amethyst to the table and swings the lamp with lethal precision. Crack! With a single sickening strike, the legendary stone is reduced to rubble. He collapses to the floor, desperately clawing at the broken shards. Look at what you've done, you monster. Do you really think I'll let you off the hook after you destroyed that? Save your breath, old man. You're just wasting oxygen. She produces a black gemstone and a jagged shard. She lets the two stones make contact. Instantly, the shard crumbles into gray ash. He's completely paralyzed by the sheer, raw power she's flexing. Elia rushes in. Father, are you hurt? Breathe. Father, please. Ingrid announces she needs a change of scenery to recover, so she'll be staying at Sasa's manor. Since I've been such a diligent daughter lately, you don't mind, do you, Father? Gazing at the ominous gem in her hand, he's left utterly speechless, stammering in total defeat. Father, stop her! What's wrong with you? You're acting pathetic! Cornelia instantly lunged forward to intercept Ingrid's path. Sister, wait, you can't seriously abandon us while Father's health is deteriorating like this. Cornelia believed her charm-laced aura would ensnare Ingrid, but Ingrid merely spat back. It's a tragedy that our esteemed father has outlived his usefulness to you. Cornelia stared down at the gems in her palm. Deep down, she lamented ever being cursed with this miraculous yet miserable power. There was a dark time when she tried to gouge out her own eyes, praying the tears would cease forever, but she was wrong. The gems still bled from her empty sockets. As long as she possessed this gift, the hands of time would relentlessly drag her back to her past. She vowed to end this cycle swiftly. Soon the carriage arrived at the Sasa estate. Unlike the suffocating gloom of her home, Sasa welcomed her with the pageantry reserved for royalty. Ingrid, I didn't expect you to grace us with your presence so soon. He gallantly assisted her down. I am deeply honored by your invitation, my lord. There is no need for such formalities. Sasa claimed he was the one truly privileged to meet her. He had meticulously curated a lavish, fully furnished suite just for her. What's the verdict? Do you like it? If anything is beneath your standards, just say the word. Scanning the opulence, she offered only 2 words. It's massive. Sasa insisted she roam wherever she pleased and make the manor her own. However, he forbade her from stepping outside without his guard, claiming he feared a Jandan kidnapping, but in truth, he had no intention of ever letting her go. Her true motive for infiltrating Sasa's domain was to uncover the secret to erasing her innate power, but she was constantly hounded by Sasa. He shadowed her every move, which she found utterly exasperating. Only in the dead of night did she find the solitude to investigate. Clutching the registry of mages, she searched for anyone capable of severing a mana connection. But the list was a dead end save for one mysterious entry whose power was a complete blank, Mage Winter Clement. Perhaps he held the key. In high society, the Beansmith clan is legendary for producing mages who command the element of fire. Sasa in particular is a monstrously powerful user even by their elite standards. He ascended to the head of the house at the tender age of 12. Recalling her 7th regression after enduring countless deaths and mastering the black diamond, she had finally fled the tower. At that time, she naively believed that as long as she escaped those walls, she could finally grasp a life of tranquility. While in flight, she literally collided with Sasa. Just as she began to stumble, he caught her in a firm embrace. He then draped his own heavy cloak around her trembling shoulders. Catching a chill. Would be a disaster, milady. Please accept this. Treated with such unprecedented warmth, her tears fell freely, inadvertently exposing her miraculous identity. Exploiting her unique status, Sasa promised back then to be the pillar she could lean on. At the time, she blindly worshipped him as the Prince Charming of her dreams, but his kindness was a calculated lie. Under the false pretense of needing rubies to buy her freedom, she foolishly placed her trust in him, manifesting a mountain of gems. Thanks to her sacrifice, his magic ascended to godlike levels. Sasa then systematically terrorized her father, forcing him to release her from one prison only to drag her into Sasa's own private dungeon. In the end, her life outside was just a different flavor of hell. He mocked her, saying the common rabble could never appreciate the true worth hidden in her tears. Isn't serving a mage of my stature a much more glorious fate? But the tears she shed out of pure fury would only forge the high-grade rubies he craved. Once his ambition was satisfied, he sneered, I heard that when a Jandan mage perishes, they create the ultimate gemstone, right? It was Cornelia who let that little secret slip. If they are your tears, they might just reshape the entire world. I was skeptical at first, but after seeing your worth, it must be true. The second he finished his monologue, he reached out and clamped her mouth shut with a brutal grip. Then he unleashed his flames to incinerate her alive. He told her she should feel privileged to serve as the fuel for the greatest mage in history. Back in the present, armed with the harrowing memories of her past life, she infiltrated the exact wing where Sasa had previously kept her captive. Just as she suspected, he already had another victim rotting in the darkness. She whispered to the captive boy to hold on for just a few more days. She was going to break him out. After delivering her silent vow, she slipped away. The moment she emerged, Sasa was already hunting for her again. He announced a grand gala for next week, an exclusive gathering for the mage elite. Playing along perfectly, she replied, "I'm eagerly anticipating it." Until the gala, Ingrid. The guests will surely be paralyzed with awe when they finally behold you. She knew the party was just a stage to flaunt her as his trophy, but she didn't care. Their relationship was ending that night regardless. To ensure the spectacle was flawless, Sasa commissioned a one-of-a-kind gown for her. The servants were suspiciously friendly, constantly showering her with hollow flattery. Then Sasa asked if she was familiar with the ballroom. She told him that before her imprisonment, she had been classically trained until the age of 10. The two rehearsed together to the tempo of the latest ballroom hits. While dancing, Ingrid subtly fished for information on the guest list, specifically probing about the Clement family. She claimed she had overheard her father praising their lineage. In reality, it was a tactical lie. Sasa scoffed, "I sent an invite to the Clements, but they're too elitist to mingle at parties." The Clements were notoriously secretive. Almost no one knew their true faces or the extent of their power. But whispers claimed the Clement clan could see through the fabric of reality and divine the future, which is why they stayed in the shadows. Ingrid was stunned. She had never heard of such a terrifying ability. Sasa told her not to fret. They were no-shows anyway. If she felt nervous, he said staying glued to his side would be enough. Finally, the night of the gala arrived. Her first move of the evening was to initiate the rescue of the blonde captive. She whispered, "The mansion is swarming with guests for the gala. There is a massive chaotic crowd outside. The staff is completely overwhelmed and distracted. Seize this moment to vanish into the crowd and escape." The boy hesitated. "But what about you? If you let me go, what will they do to you?" "Don't worry about me. I have my own endgame." Meanwhile, over at the Clement estate, the word was that they had zero interest in a circus hosted by that red fox of the Beansmith family. But there is something foul that the fox is concealing within its den. The younger brother grew intrigued by the Jandan mage. Meanwhile, back at the gala, Cornelia made her grand entrance. Fueled by her insidious power of temptation, the moment she stepped into the room, she hijacked everyone's focus and was immediately bombarded with a shower of hollow flattery. However, her triumph was short-lived as the spotlight shifted violently toward Ingrid the moment she strolled in beside Sasa. Whispers erupted that she was the one Sasa was truly obsessed with. Cornelia stood off to the side, vibrating with pure malice. She could do nothing but hiss curses under her breath, powerless to lay a finger on Ingrid. Cornelia eventually approached to needle her sister. "Are you sure you can handle such a packed event? Try not to trample your partner's feet while you're at it." Ingrid delivered a chilling, low-voiced warning. "I suggest you keep your distance. It'll be far less messy for both of us. Once the world uncovers the fraud behind those gems, you'll be the only one left in the gutter." "Oh, is that the play enjoy the party then?" Just then, Sasa stepped in to claim the opening dance. "Look at that, you're finally the center of attention." "Aren't they actually just staring at you?" Sasa leaned in his voice, a dangerous whisper against her ear. "I keep a pet in my basement. Strangely, it managed to vanish from its cage this morning. You wouldn't happen to know a thing about that, would you?" Sasa noted that his unbreakable locks had been utterly incinerated, reduced to mere ash. Maintaining her composure, she countered, "Is it possible your pet simply broke them? That high-bred pet would never have the nerve, much like you. Why would anyone keep a pet in a basement anyway?" "It's simply my method of training. It ensures they remain perfectly submissive to their master." "Do you have any insight into this, Ingrid?" "How would I know? Forgive my lack of tact on the dance floor. To prevent another escape, I suppose I'll need a much more formidable lock. Next time, I'll be sure to prepare a lock that's truly inescapable." Witnessing the pair moving in flawless, elegant synchronization, Cornelia stormed out in a fit of jealous rage. When intercepted, her expression was nothing short of homicidal, as she snarled that she demanded to be left alone. While she was seething over Ingrid stealing her thunder, she accidentally collided with a strikingly handsome and polished gentleman. "My apologies, milady. I'm in a bit of a rush. Are you injured?" In an instant, her obsession with beautiful men spiked. She was stunned into silence for 5 seconds. Once he moved on, she scrambled to follow, thinking, "Who cares about Sasa anymore? This man is my ultimate endgame." Disappointed by the Clement family's absence, she was about to retreat inside when Winter Clement suddenly materialized, looking breathtakingly handsome. His lethal, icy aura commanded. It hijacked every single gaze in the room. Before long, the crowd began whispering that wherever the Clement bloodline steps, victory is guaranteed in any conflict. If a Clement is present, the war is already won. The mystery everyone craved to solve was the true nature of the Clement power, yet the secret remained impenetrable. Winter's rare public appearance set the guests' curiosity ablaze. In that precise moment, the realization hit Ingrid like a bolt of lightning. He was the same man who had shared that moonlit hot air balloon ride with her. Winter walked directly to Ingrid to pay his respects. "You are Lady Ingrid, I presume?" "I am. It's a distinct pleasure to meet you. Representing the Jandon house, I see." "I am Winter Clement. I've come on behalf of my sister Grace to extend our gratitude." Recalling her scheme from days ago, she had sent a tailored invitation to Winter's sister Grace just to ensure a Clement would show up. Despite her lineage, Grace was born without a drop of magic. Grace is typically the one who stands in for Winter at these tedious social functions. In that specific invitation, she had embedded a high-grade ruby as a gift, and clearly the bait had been taken. "The honor is mine, but may I ask why Lady Grace couldn't join us?" "As my sister is not a mage, she is barred from attending this particular gathering. Forgive my lack of my social oversight, but meeting Lord Winter in person is an unexpected privilege. If you'd be so kind, perhaps we could dance." Just as she moved to probe him about his power, Sasa aggressively cut in. He remarked that he never imagined the head of the Clement family would actually stoop to attend such a party. "This evening will surely go down as a historic occasion. I've fulfilled my obligations here. Pray excuse me." "Hold on. Leaving so soon, I've barely had the chance to show you proper hospitality." Seeing her window to connect with Winter slamming shut, Ingrid turned to withdraw, only to be yanked back by Sasa. "Now where do you think you're going?" "I merely wish to admire the night sky for a moment." "In that case, allow me to escort you." "That won't be necessary. I prefer my own company." It was a miracle she hadn't slapped him yet, and still he persisted in dogging her steps. Ingrid bolted outside, desperate to overtake Winter before he vanished. To her immense relief, he was still standing there. Locking eyes with him, she sensed that he had already foreseen her confrontation with Sasa. Would show up in a heartbeat. Sasa conjured a wall of searing flames to drive a wedge between her and Winter. "You have the audacity to tryst with another man right under my nose. Did you honestly believe I just overlooked this blatant betrayal? I am merely exercising my authority within the walls of my own domain. You simply happen to be in the line of fire. Fine, even if I buy your excuses. I no longer have a single reason to remain in this wretched place. So that's how it is. You've already managed to secure a replacement so quickly. I regret ever hosting this gala. Do you think I'll let you walk away that easily?" The inferno surged at his command. Please, this small fry thought she'd be intimidated, Ingrid. Clutching a ruby, stepped boldly into the roaring blaze. The ruby's protection was inferior to the amethyst. If Sasa truly unleashed his fury, she'd be scorched. But even if she burned, a single emerald would mend the damage, wouldn't it? Sasa stood paralyzed, shocked that a mere ruby possessed such defensive warding. Observing Winter, who had remained a silent, stoic spectator from the very start, Sasa questioned if the man truly possessed the gift of foresight, or if he was simply too stunned to react. A completely inscrutable enigma. At his breaking point, Sasa funneled more mana into the flames, nearly incinerating Ingrid. Winter merely muttered a faint incantation. The raging fire vanished into thin air instantly. Sasa stared blankly at his own empty palm, thinking, where did my magic go? Then Winter stepped forward, shielding her. That's enough, Beansmith. If your fire touches me, it won't be dismissed as a mere accident. Realizing he was hopelessly outmatched, Sasa spat that Winter had forced him to display an unsightly side of himself. He claimed his madness was born solely from a blind, obsessive love. Winter replied coldly, "Fine as long as you release her." Sasa lowered his gaze, realizing Winter was a high-tier archmage. If he acted recklessly today, his total defeat was guaranteed. He turned on his heel and retreated, seething with the thought, if not today, then another time. Only then did Winter turn to inquire if Ingrid had sustained any injuries. "No, I'm unscathed. By the way, are you interested in striking a bargain with me?" At this sudden proposition, he froze in place for 5 long seconds. Ingrid explained that the rubies possessed the rare ability to massively buff a mage's raw power. If Winter desired them, she'd provide an infinite supply on the sole condition that he extract her from this place and take her to his manor. Winter remarked. The rumors suggested that between the twin sisters, it was the younger one who manifested the rubies. Rumors in the end are nothing more than whispers and lies. After a brief moment of contemplation, he stated, I have no use for gemstones. But as for you coming to my estate, that is acceptable. She stood frozen for 5 seconds. For the first time in her lives, someone didn't covet her gems. What are you still standing there for? Aren't we leaving? I'm coming. Whatever, as long as I have a roof over my head. Inside the Clement residence, Grace Winter's sister witnessed her brother bringing a girl home for the very first time. And an absolutely adorable girl at that. Despite just meeting it, felt as though they were kindred spirits. Grace pulled her into a sudden tight embrace, leaving a massive question mark above Ingrid's head. What exactly is the situation here, Winter? I never imagined you'd bring home such a precious, adorable gift. Cut it out, sister. You've only just met her. Don't make her despise you already. You're overthinking things. She turned to ask, You're Ingrid, right? I'm Grace, the older sister of this moody brat. Thank you for that exquisite gift you sent before. Ingrid was reeling, wondering what on earth was happening. Grace squeezed her again, squealing, So cute, the imprisoned princess isn't just a fairy tale. It's actually true, too precious for words. Ingrid, please consider this your own home. Only then did Ingrid realize he didn't care for the gems because he intended her as a gift for his sister. Truly. Now go change into something fresh and let's have some tea, all right? Don't these rags make you uncomfortable? I'll find a gown that actually complements your beauty. A week flew by, and her existence became more tranquil than ever before. The bond between those two siblings was incredibly tight, a world away from the toxic relationship she had with her own family. Lady Grace is a paragon of both immense talent and striking beauty. She possesses a masterful touch with people and, more importantly, treats me with genuine tenderness. Furthermore, she is a formidable woman, highly skilled in both the literary and martial arts. She explained that, because she wasn't born a mage, she had to find alternative ways to anchor the family, so the more knowledge she hoards, the better. In that moment, Ingrid wondered if she simply intended to never marry. Immediately, Grace quipped that if she wed, her younger brother would be left utterly desolate, wouldn't he? Ingrid nearly choked on her water, because Grace had answered the exact question she was merely thinking. To explain her intuition, she claimed everyone thinks the same. From start to finish, her expression never wavered, truly an unpredictable woman. However, even more enigmatic is the man with the delicate yet frostbitten features. Aside from his older sister, he refuses to open his heart to a single soul. A week has passed, and the times I've actually seen him can be counted on one hand. This can't continue, so I decided to find a way to corner him. Just as I prepared to follow Winter into his private study, Lady Grace intervened. Dinner is nearly served. Let's go. Lady Grace warned that the room across from us was the only sanctuary I couldn't enter. Otherwise, the entire mansion was mine to roam. I am a special guest, and Winter had personally granted me this freedom. Back at the Jandon estate, Cornelia was seething with fury because she had witnessed Ingrid boarding that carriage. Winter was departing. First, Sasa, now Winter. Why does she keep sabotaging my path? Thinking Ingrid used gems to enchant them, she revealed her own bottomless stupidity. A moronic scheme began to take shape in her mind. She hissed, Fine, if that's the game. I still have a hoard of gems from all those years. Brainwashing a few fools won't be a problem. It's rare to see you so agitated, milady. Wipe that terrifying look off your face. I've brought some exquisite news to brighten your mood. Interested in a little alliance with the failure who let her vanish into thin air, and you have the audacity to show your face to me so casually. That is precisely why I'm here. Do you realize your sister is currently a guest at the Clement Manor? While your sister is living her best life, you're the one wrought in frustration, aren't you? I want to tear those two apart. And what exactly is in it for me? Just hear out my strategy first. It's not too late to back out. After a moment of deliberation, Cornelia decided to strike a bargain with him. Since she perceived Sasa as powerful, joining forces seemed to offer more profit than peril. If things went south, she could just pin the catastrophe on him, truly a naive, childish thought. After that, Sasa suggested she could use rubies to supercharge her temptation magic. That way, she could manipulate an entire crowd simultaneously. Cornelia was likely ecstatic at the possibility. Sasa... Meanwhile, at the Clement mansion, Lady Grace had prepared an endless mountain of stunning gowns for her. Ingrid began trying on every single one back and forth over and over, likely 80 or 90 times, yet the pile of silk wasn't shrinking. The struggle was real. She was so breathtaking she looked divine in everything. Gazing at the family portrait on the wall, Ingrid asked Lady Grace, Hey, does Winter choose isolation? Because he's terrified of people discovering his true power. You should probably direct that question to the man himself. But I never get the opportunity. That's just because he's painfully shy. There's still one guaranteed way to find out, become my sister-in-law. Good grief, she's literally drooling at the very idea. The moment you become the bride of this house, you have the right to every secret. I'd also warmly welcome such a precious little sister-in-law. Lady Grace, please stop teasing me. Just then, Winter entered the room, scanned the area, and didn't see Ingrid anywhere. He asked, I heard Ingrid was here. Right here, for heaven's sake. It was just that the mountain of dresses was so colossal. It completely obstructed his view, hiding her from sight. Winter announced that a guest had arrived to see her. It was that blonde boy from before. It's been far too long, milady. I am Charles Brand, a crafting mage. Thank goodness you're safe. To express his gratitude for her saving his life, Charles Brand had forged a custom-made necklace specifically for her. At first glance, it appeared quite modest until the moment it touched her skin. It immediately transformed into a masterpiece of breathtaking beauty. Charles Brand whispered, as expected of Lady Ingrid. Charles Brand is a crafting mage, one whose jewelry morphs into forms that reflect the owner's soul. I heard milady is a mage of gemstones, so I created a piece where you can mount your own tears. Perhaps that was why Sasa had kidnapped Brand to force him to craft vessels for the gems stolen from her. Seeing Ingrid hesitate to accept the treasure, Winter broke the silence. Lord Brand, night is falling. Truthfully, I apologize, but I cannot permit an overnight stay. Oh. Is it that late already? I was simply so overjoyed to see Lady Ingrid again. Out by the carriage, Ingrid shouted, Mr. Brand, this necklace, I truly cannot accept such a gift. This is the only tribute I can offer you. Please, milady, keep it. Ingrid wondered how something so radiant could ever belong to someone like her. Noticing Winter was intensely monitoring their exchange, Charles Brand whispered to Ingrid, Is staying in this house truly your own choice? The rumors about the Clements are dark. Don't worry, I want to be here. After Charles Brand departed, leaving only the two of them, Ingrid asked, Why did you let me stay while chasing Charles Brand away? Because you are fundamentally different from other mages. Just how much do you actually know about me? Gazing at the necklace in her palm, he remarked that while it was a masterpiece, it was far too pure to suit a man like him. How could he say that? Hadn't the truth already been laid bare? The necklace's true mystical power is to morph into a form that resonates with the wearer's soul. Judging by its brilliance, her staying at this manor wasn't a mistake at all. Right now, he's pacing the garden alone, watching his sister bleed and sweat in training, all to become a shield strong enough to protect him. He spiraled into the past. Since he was a toddler, his father had hammered a single terrifying warning into him, never utter a word, about the true nature of his power to a living soul. Even though his father's own magic wasn't legendary, he was a man held in absolute awe and reverence by the masses. He was a compassionate father and the prestigious future sovereign of the clan. Since his youth, Winter endured a grueling, relentless education, but in exchange he was constantly bathed in the unconditional love of his parents and sister. He lived a life of vibrant joy and fulfillment, until the day his mother collapsed, claimed by a sudden, localized epidemic. His mother's condition withered away, growing more dire with every passing hour. In that moment of despair, a shadow appeared masquerading as a miraculous healing mage. He promised to restore his mother to health. The price, however, was the secret of Winter's hidden power. At first, he was skeptical, refusing to trust the silver-tongued stranger. But after watching the man mend a mangled, dying rabbit with a single gesture, the moment he touched the creature, it was instantly and perfectly healed. It wasn't that he dismissed his father's ironclad rules, but the maid who first fell ill had already died a gruesome death. Drowning in desperation to save his mother, he finally surrendered the forbidden secret to that man. The very next day, exactly when the sun reached its zenith, because the Clement family's sole vulnerability only manifests at high noon, the stranger launched a lethal assault on the manor. Sensing the impending slaughter, his father shoved him into a cramped closet, commanding him to remain silent until the nightmare ended. From behind the slats, he was blind to the carnage. The only thing that seared into his memory was that stranger's voice. The man growled, "So, you're the head of the pathetic Clement family." His father barely managed to gasp, "Who are you?" before he was cold-bloodedly cut down by the assassin. Then came the frantic, chaotic shouts of guards echoing that the master had been assassinated. The killer had vanished like smoke, and the search for the culprit began in vain. Once the silence returned, he pushed the door open and took a trembling step out. The sight before him was a nightmare of fresh gore coating the floor, and his father sprawled in a massive pool of blood. It was his loose tongue that had signed his father's death warrant. And from that day forward, the self-proclaimed healer vanished into the shadows of history. To this day, not a single trace of the man's whereabouts has ever been uncovered. But miraculously, the secret of their power hasn't been leaked to the common world either. Not long after his father's tragic demise, his mother followed him to the grave, her heart simply giving out. To keep the Clement legacy from crumbling, the moment he donned the mantle of clan head, he buried himself in his studies with a manic intensity. The news of the patriarch's death had barely spread before scavengers swarmed trying to pry secrets from a grieving child. They were all nothing but hollow hypocrites. He realized then that no one could ever be trusted. Cut to the present, where Ingrid has officially set her endgame in motion. She had attempted to covertly infiltrate that restricted room, but the seals were far too formidable. She couldn't risk using the black diamond to breach it, as that would blow the entire door off its hinges. After mulling it over, she decided to summon her ace Gaspar. Clutching a ruby, she channeled her mana to make it pulse, signaling the thief. Meanwhile, inside that forbidden chamber, Winter was monitoring the manor and immediately detected her suspicious move. The moment he stepped back into the hallway, he ran right into Lady Grace. She asked pointedly, "What did your eyes see today?" Seeing his brooding silence, she pressed on. "Regarding Ingrid, I suspect you already knew. The girl is weaving a plot. There must be a harrowing reason behind her actions. But I have a gut feeling that absolutely no harm will come to us because of her." "I'm aware." Meanwhile, back in Ingrid's private quarters, Gaspar had already materialized out of the shadows, ready for duty. "It's been a minute. Did you miss me? You're late. Drop the act. You do realize this is the Clement estate, right?" Noticing Gaspar leaning in far too close, she snapped, "Back off. Relax. I'm a total gentleman. Even if I did happen to infiltrate a lady's chambers. Under the cover of night, I'd never dream of being disrespectful." He toyed with the pulsating ruby and asked, "What's the deal with this? You're the one humming, right? Make it stop glowing. Focus and listen to what I have to say." "Ugh, I knew this was going to be a headache." "Your specialty is teleportation, isn't it?" Gaspar smirked, noting it's a master thief's dream. "But every gift has its limits. I need you to warp me to a very specific location. There's a sanctum that only the head of the house can access." "Fine. You seriously haven't changed a bit, always chasing the most unhinged goals. Consider it done." "So when do we drop in?" "Tomorrow at high noon." "Noon? Not the usual midnight run. The master typically haunts that room at night. At noon, he'll likely be occupied elsewhere." "Got it. Your wish is my command, princess. Just know if you get caught and tossed out, I'm ghosting you. Don't even try it. If you help me, it means you're officially my accomplice." With that, she rolled over to sleep, leaving him utterly stunned. "Hey, if we're doing this, we need a better plan. Hey, Ingrid." The next day at noon, right on cue, Winter departed while Grace headed to training. Ingrid watched from the shadows. Once she confirmed the timing was flawless, the two initiated their heist. Ready for the jump. Born ready. With a sharp snap of his fingers, she instantly dematerialized and reappeared right inside the restricted room. But contrary to her visions, the space was hauntingly empty. Noticing a light in the center, she realized this was a site for rituals or high-level sorcery. If the rumors about the clan possessing the sight to peer through the fabric of the world are true, does he hear divine prophecies from this window? He previously claimed she was unlike other mages. He clearly sees my reality. If he perceives everything occurring around him, then my presence here is... Suddenly, the door creaked open. Turning around, she found Winter already standing there, his gaze fixed upon her. Their eyes locked in a tense silence. Then, overwhelmed by the awkwardness, she lowered her gaze and stammered an apology. Winter simply replied, "No, the fault is mine for entering at an inopportune time. You knew I was coming and could have blocked me, right? I was curious to see how you'd play your hand." "Is that so? Was this move beyond the scope of your visions?" "That is a complex question. The locks show no signs of physical tampering. It appears the variable I didn't foresee was your use of a professional thief. In truth, your very presence in this house was a deviation from my path, at least compared to the you of before. Aside from that, might have our paths ever crossed elsewhere?" "No. So I'm asking you now that you've cornered my secret, what is your endgame? Can't your all-seeing eye discern my intentions?" "I cannot, which is why I'm asking." "Really? And here I thought you were omniscient." "Ingrid, what is your ultimate desire?" Her expression shifted instantly. She turned away and whispered, "I believe that as long as this power exists, I want you to help me destroy it." She felt that once the gems were gone, she could finally fade from this world, to vanish from this wretched existence without a trace, leaving not even a speck of dust behind. Total erasure. Is that truly what you crave? If she could find a world where she never had to cry again, the loss of her magic would be a small price to pay. To this family, my utility is valued far above my actual life. There is one complication. My current magic cannot grant that wish. I see. She looked utterly crushed. However, depending on the circumstances, I might know a method to sever your power. When that time comes, what then? Then. I will be at your service. As for when I'll find the answer, I cannot say. I am truly sorry. No, it's not like I'm in a desperate rush. Winter turned to depart. At the threshold, he glanced back and added, by the way, I haven't mentioned the thief to Grace. No need to bring it up. At that very moment, Grace had already cornered Gaspar. You're remarkably brave to trespass on my territory, aren't you? Obviously. I know exactly where I am, but this is a time-sensitive matter. A lady knight. Now that's impressive. You seem pretty chill. Truth be told, I was actually invited by someone currently residing here. Immediately, Ingrid's face flashed in her mind. You probably guessed it. Ingrid is the one who called me in. And why exactly would Ingrid invite a shadow like you? I'm not at liberty to say, but I'm definitely not pulling your leg. You've been aiming that blade at me for a while. Arm getting tired. I'm not looking for trouble. So why don't you lower the steel? Not a chance. I exist solely to be the shield of this family. Until I am certain every threat is neutralized, this sword stays exactly where it is. Fine then. I've always had a soft spot for cautious types like you anyway. Gaspar emerged from the restricted chamber and took in the scene before darting over to Ingrid's side. The moment he spotted her, he flashed a playful grin, snapped his fingers, and instantly warped to her position. Ah, you're back! My apologies, Lady Grace. I'm the one who summoned this shadow here. Lady Grace was absolutely seething because he had slipped her grasp so effortlessly. Despite the tension, he acted as if it were a minor trifle as they exited the manor. Ingrid couldn't help but wonder what kind of sparks had flown between Lady Grace and Gaspar during her absence. It seemed Gaspar had taken a genuine liking to Lady Grace given how frequently he crashed their home to loiter. Hey, are you two even processing a word I'm saying? With you barking right in our ears, how could we possibly miss it? Wait, what exhibition? Exactly that. Once every few years in the heart of the capital, they host an incredibly prestigious and grand festival. It's a stage where elite mages put their masterpieces on blast to flex their raw power. It gets more extravagant with every iteration. And your point is, clearly your brain is on standby. Let's all head down there and witness the spectacle ourselves. Our lineage doesn't exactly thrive in loud, festive crowds. Oh, how incredibly dull. It wouldn't hurt to touch grass for once, Ingrid. What's the verdict? Ingrid felt the pull of curiosity too. All right, let's do it. The day of the grand exhibition arrived in the blink of an eye. Lady Grace appeared to be genuinely vibing with the trip. The energy here is insane. Ingrid was floored by the sheer scale of the festivities as they officially began their tour. Gaspar quipped, I honestly didn't think you'd actually show your face here. I'm going to save a fortune on travel costs now that the Clement Patriarch is footing the bill. Fed up with Gaspar's non-stop yapping and main character energy, Winter shifted into high gear and stormed ahead of the group. Gaspar wore a distinctly predatory, calculating smirk. He clearly had his sights set on some high-tier loot. The moment Lady Grace stepped away, Winter drifted closer and asked, Ingrid, what's weighing on your mind? You didn't strike me as the type to genuinely enjoy a crowded festival. I wasn't thinking of the party. I just received a token from my sister. Our bond is toxic, unlike yours. Her letter was dripping with fake concern. It's more nauseating than a direct insult. If the relationship is that fractured, why bother accepting the invite and coming at all? Don't mistake this for a reunion. I have zero intention of playing nice. She's obviously cooking up something foul. I've heard whispers that the Jandon house sank a ridiculous fortune into this exhibition, which means Cornelia will be pulling a significant amount of the strings behind the scenes. With a somber expression, she gazed at the exhibition square carved entirely from ice. She mused that no matter how stubborn the frost, it would eventually succumb to the heat and vanish. Just perfect. The second she reached the perimeter gate, the guards barred her path. Access denied, move along. I knew there'd be drama. Step aside, I have a formal invitation right here. How are we supposed to trust a nobody like you around these priceless artifacts? It had been ages since she'd seen that glazed over look. These puppets were clearly under Cornelia's temptation spell. Now she just had to wait for her two powerhouses to come and bail her out. A few heartbeats later, Winter reappeared. Hey, who do you think you're stopping? They caught sight of the sigil on his coat, the legendary Clement family crest. Is there an issue, my lord? None, no, sir. None at all. Our apologies. Then why do you possess the audacity to block her? I'm not sure what delusion you're under. But this lady is my companion. Open the path immediately. The guard looked like he was about to have a total meltdown, guys. Ingrid, my apologies for walking ahead and leaving you vulnerable. Did they harass you? No, it was nothing. Is that so? Don't stray again. I have no intention of letting you get lost in this crowd. The moment they stepped inside, she sensed the atmosphere shift into something unsettling. Every pair of eyes was glued to her, likely because she was flanking the Clement siblings. So the crowd didn't dare start whispering just yet. Suddenly, a small boy caught her eye. The child was wandering lost, searching for his mother when he took a nasty spill. She rushed over and asked, "Are you all right? Where does it hurt?" Noticing the boy's leg was bloodied, she told him to blink, then manifested an emerald to knit his wounds. Instantly, the trauma vanished and his face lit up. Just then, his mother arrived. "Thank you 1,000 times. I don't know how to repay such kindness." "Oh, please, think nothing of it." Witnessing Ingrid's selfless act, the Clement siblings shared a rare, satisfied smile. Meanwhile, over in Cornelia's camp, she was currently pushing her dark powers to their absolute limit to manipulate the masses at the exhibition, specifically targeting the security detail. She used her charm magic to poison their minds, saying, "If you cross paths with her, stay on high alert. There's no telling what kind of chaos she'll ignite." Her gemstone pulsed with light, branding her lies into their memories. Cornelia's expression in that moment was nothing short of demonic. "Just you wait, dear sister. Your downfall is coming." Cornelia and Sasa strategically leaked venomous rumors through high society, painting Ingrid as a treacherous viper, who callously spat on Lord Sasa's benevolence just to seduce the prestigious Clement house. Simultaneously, the younger sister played the victim, acting devastated by her siblings' betrayal, a saintly and heartbroken little angel. This entire exhibition only materialized thanks to Cornelia's influence. She was absolutely gloating. In her twisted mind, she believed that once this trap snapped shut, her sister would have no choice but to crawl back to her in disgrace. "As long as every piece falls into its designated slot, I'll ensure even Lord Winter looks at her with nothing but pure disgust." Back at the tranquil estate, the Clement siblings had already detected the foul stench of a conspiracy. "Something wicked is definitely brewing, isn't it? Exactly how much have you foreseen? My darling sister has officially launched her scheme alongside that manipulative Red Fox. For now, that is the extent of what my vision reveals." Oblivious to the specific details of the plot, Grace went to check on Ingrid. "Ingrid, I want to take you somewhere special today." "Where is our destination?" "We're heading to the manor of a close acquaintance." "It'll be the perfect escape to clear your mind, don't you think?" "Are you still dwelling on those mindless soldiers who barred my way at the festival?" "Naturally. Why on earth must you endure such vile, judgmental glares?" "So you're planning to dig for more intel?" "Spot on. That friend of mine is a socialite in the capital, meaning she's privy to every scandalous whisper circulating through the nobility. I'm sure you noticed it too, those people who treated you with such blatant hostility. They were all high-ranking members of the upper crust." Only then did Ingrid realize that while the guards and nobles were cold, the common people hadn't shown her any malice at all. Right now, before long, they arrived at the lavish home of Grace's friend. "It is an absolute honor to see you, Lady Grace." "It has been far too long, Barbara." "Lady Grace, it truly has. You really should grace the capital with your presence more often." Ingrid Jandon. Ingrid Jandon. Barbara's face instantly clouded with visible disdain the second the name left Grace's lips. She hesitated, but decided to press on. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I am Ingrid Jandon. I simply couldn't stomach the city's frantic energy anymore. This atmosphere is much more therapeutic." At this point, Barbara's biting remark left Grace reeling in confusion. But Ingrid was already desensitized to such petty hostility, so she continued to sip her tea with effortless grace. Grace finally interjected. "She holds an official invitation to the exhibition." Grace reminded her that Barbara's own family had reaped massive rewards from that sponsorship, so a warm welcome was the bare minimum. But Barbara was already drunk on the rumors. She scoffed. The only one who actually put in the work this time was Lady Cornelia. Now there is a truly gifted individual. On the flip side, I've heard the older sister is nothing but a gold-digging parasite. The gossip says that after the Beansmiths treated her like a queen, she just ghosted them without a single word of thanks. Just as Ingrid suspected, Sasa's fingerprints were all over this. I hate to overstep, but Lady Grace, shouldn't you vet your inner circle more carefully before appearing in public? You are definitely overstepping right now. Hearing Barbara's aggressive tone, Grace realized something was seriously warped, because Barbara was usually the type to meticulously weigh every syllable before she spoke. Gazing at Ingrid with a pained expression, Grace thought, "If I knew it would devolve into this, I never would have brought her. Is she going to break under this pressure? Why are you being so transparently hostile? Whether she stays at one manor or another, she was invited. It's perfectly normal." "Perhaps, but do you have any legitimate reason to despise her so much?" "Nothing concrete, I suppose." "Well, I happen to think there's a very specific reason. Ingrid decided it was the perfect moment to put her theory to the test. Why should you be forced to endure such baseless toxic stares from those elitist fools? Barbara flinched in surprise. What on earth are you doing? A heartbeat later, the emerald ignited with a brilliant glow. The gemstone was forcibly shattering the temptation spell woven into her mind. Slowly, Barbara's eyes fluttered open. With Cornelia's dark charm purged, the light felt unexpectedly soothing and warm. The emerald, having siphoned the curse, turned as black as obsidian. Tucking the tainted gem away, Ingrid asked coolly, "Do you still intend to hold that grudge?" Barbara touched her cheek in a daze. "I can't explain it, but that inexplicable hatred from before, it's completely vanished." "Glad to hear it." The tactical reason Cornelia had ensnared Barbara was her status as a high-ranking socialite with an immense web of influence. "I told you from the start that Ingrid was innocent in all this. If Lady Grace vouchsafes for her," Ingrid cut her off mid-sentence. "Don't force yourself to believe. There is no tangible proof after all." Barbara mused to herself. The whispers painted her as a wicked, loose woman, but she doesn't seem like a villain at all. In fact, I'd be grateful if you detailed every vile rumor currently circulating about me. They claim you're a party girl, funding a lavish lifestyle through illicit trades. They even whispered that you stole Lady Cornelia's precious tears and trafficked them to a third party for massive profit. The fabrications were beyond unhinged. Ingrid stood up abruptly. "I appreciate your cooperation." Grace watched Ingrid with wide eyes, thinking, "Wait, she's finished already." Ingrid glanced back at Grace and offered a faint smile, a silent gesture of profound gratitude. Seeing Ingrid finally shed a heavy burden, Grace beamed. It felt like her meddling had actually saved the girl. "Thanks for everything today, Barbara. Oh, one last thing, milady. Could you listen?" After they departed, Barbara sat in the silence of her room, reeling. To think Lady Cornelia had actually bewitched her. She couldn't ignore the possibility that the elder sister was framing the younger with gemstones. Yet, if that were the case, Lady Grace would never tolerate such a betrayal. Just then, a servant announced that Cornelia had arrived for a visit. Donning that same mask of fake innocence, Cornelia chirped, "I am so relieved to see you again. I've come to ask a small favor today." A favor, right? She glided closer and pressed a ruby against her temptation stone to supercharge her hypnotic charm. The stone flared with an eerie light as she spoke. "There is a certain place I need a socialite of your caliber to visit. You'll do that for me, won't you?" "Yes, Lady Cornelia." Barbara was ensnared once more. Cornelia's face twisted into its true predatory scheming form. Upon returning to Winter's estate, Ingrid found a formal invitation waiting for her from Cornelia. She decided to confront Cornelia alone. As she reached the threshold, Winter intercepted her. "Heading out. Where's Lady Grace? I have an appointment I must keep today." With a look of deep concern, Winter asked, "To see your sister?" "Yes." She wondered exactly how much of the truth he had already foreseen. "Didn't you explicitly state before that you had no intention of reconciling with her?" "I haven't changed my mind." She flashed the card, "But she requested a private audience, so I'm obligated to attend, am I not?" "If that is your choice, then go. But stay on your guard. There's no need for concern. I won't do anything to jeopardize you or Lady Grace. Later. I have to leave now to stay on schedule." Winter sighed, a headache forming. "I still haven't managed to tell her the truth." He had no desire to derail her plans, but remembering their last encounter, Ingrid had lunged head first into peril without a second thought. He was terrified because she had zero regard for her own survival. Winter turned and retreated into the shadows of his secret chamber. Meanwhile, she arrived at the rendezvous point. Cornelia was still wearing her nauseatingly fake mask. "Seeing you again makes me so incredibly happy. I was worried sick about you." "Worried about what?" "That I'd be mistreated in the Clement household." "Oh, don't be silly. I'm just worried you've lost your freedom or that you're uncomfortable. I'm also terrified you'll stumble into some grave danger." "Danger? Even though I trust you implicitly, what if malicious people manipulate you into doing something horrific? Don't waste your breath on fake concern." Unable to stomach the performance, Ingrid turned to leave. Cornelia scrambled after her. "Sister, I'm sorry. Did I offend you? Wait up." As they exited, onlookers began to whisper. They branded Ingrid as cold-hearted and pitied poor Cornelia, but Ingrid was unfazed. To execute her master plan, Cornelia tried to anchor Ingrid there. "Have you seen the Jandon Gallery yet? All the ancestral gems are on display. You absolutely must see them." Sensing the trap Cornelia was baiting, Ingrid decided to play along. "Fine. Lead the way." Cornelia thought she had a trophy, but she was just holding bait. "Girl, you're popping the champagne way too early." By the time Ingrid emerged from the exhibition hall, night had already fallen. Cornelia looked smugly satisfied. As for me, I feel like I'm walking through the pits of hell. Cornelia was someone she wouldn't stand near even if her life depended on it. Yet, to play the loving sister, that girl had committed fully to the performance. In a twisted way, she actually admired Cornelia's commitment to the lie. But after today, she had secured every piece of intel she needed. Right now, she was navigating a dangerously deserted alleyway. She glanced up at the pale moon and whispered, "The moon. It's always so hauntingly beautiful, isn't it?" Suddenly, from the shadows, a stranger lunged with a club intent on violence. In that fraction of a second, she managed to manifest a black diamond. With the mere flick of her wrist, the heavy club vanished into nothingness. She looks absolutely legendary, guys. The assailant was paralyzed, unable to even breathe. She turned slowly and called out, "There's still another one of you lurking back there, right?" So, this was why Cornelia had stalled for time. They wanted her stripped of her gems so they could knock her out in the dark. How pathetic. That amateur trick won't work on her in this timeline. In her previous life, they had timed her outing for when she was defenseless to assassinate her. This time, she had predicted their every move. She reached out and summoned a handful of gemstones. "How many more of you are hiding? Come out and face me. This amount of mana should be more than enough to handle you." Instant terror. The stranger was trembling like a leaf in a storm. He spun around and bolted. She commanded, "Stop." Immediately, his body froze mid-stride and he was forced to crawl back to her. To my friend lurking in the shadows, if you'd rather not be reduced to cinders, revealing yourself would be a stroke of genius. Excellent. Now lead the way. The young thugs gasped in unison. "Wait, what?" "Escort me to the very destination you originally intended to drag me to." After concluding her meeting, she was suddenly ambushed by two shadowy figures. In a flash, she effortlessly suppressed them, demanding they deliver her to the kidnapping site as planned. Right now, two snakes are celebrating, convinced they've finally tightened the noose around her neck. Sasa, swirling his wine glass, smirked. "Isn't the night air exquisite? Cornelia is our little project moving along." Naturally, I've just received confirmation that Lady Ingrid has arrived at the trap. Cornelia added, "No need for gratitude. It would be quite scandalous if whispers of our midnight tryst reached young Master Winter." "Oh, really?" she then asked. "But must we rely on such a tedious roundabout strategy?" "What are you implying?" "Simply that you could have hauled her to your dungeon the moment she was caught or just ended her right there." "Do you have any idea how much precision this requires? It would be a catastrophe if we were sloppy and the Clement house caught wind. We must systematically dismantle their faith in Lady Ingrid, ensuring her explanations sound like desperate lies. Then, no matter how the Clements try to shield her, it will be child's play for us to drag her back where she belongs. Because she is your sister after all. That will finally force young Master Winter to open his eyes. And inevitably, they'll realize you are the true power behind the Jandon name. He'll be tripping over himself to please you." At Sasa's flattery, her eyes glimmered with pure greed. "Spot on. And for that very reason, I need you to keep playing your part a little longer. I'll be keeping my hands clean, so I'm putting my trust in you." Radiating overconfidence, she scoffed, "You're speaking as if failure is even an option for me." With that final jab, she glided away with a triumphant, malicious grin. She was convinced the stage was finally set for the grand opening. Meanwhile, Winter was silently observing the stars above. He could sense the web of trouble they were weaving specifically for him. Such utterly shameless foxes. Having tracked the rumors from Lady Grace, he knew the royal guards were being diverted, allowing him to pinpoint the location through his sister's intel. However, it appears Ingrid is also busy cooking up a counter-strategy of her own. Now the unpredictable is bound to happen. Winter stood up abruptly to depart. At the threshold, he hesitated. He mused, "Does she even want my interference? Could she have orchestrated this entire mess? No, that's impossible. She swore she wouldn't drag me or Grace into her storm." At that moment, Lady Grace hurried in. "When, Lady Grace?" "What's the matter?" "Ingrid hasn't returned yet. She might have been forcibly taken." Lady Grace asked in shock, "If you suspect that, why are you just standing here like a statue?" With a pained expression, he thought, she might actually resent my help. Lady Grace saw straight through his hesitation and snapped, "Winter, you're being far too analytical. What does your heart want right now? Ask yourself, are you truly okay with just standing here while she's in danger?" Stirred by Lady Grace's sharp words, he grabbed his coat in a blur of motion and muttered, "Stay here. Is there any universe where I just stand idle and do absolutely nothing?" By now, Ingrid had been escorted into a grand hall teeming with high society guests. A man commanded the stage, showcasing a rare item for the highest bidder. She immediately recognized the scene for what it was: a high-stakes illegal auction. And this was clearly the opening act of the night. Beneath the shimmering, elegant facade of the exhibition were dark transactions shrouded by the cover of night. Every item crossing the block was strictly forbidden contraband. Naturally, the entire operation was steeped in criminality. But this is the rot at the heart of the nobility that everyone whispers about. However, if this curtain were ever pulled back, anyone implicated would face a total and immediate fall from grace. This is the foundation for the vicious rumors that the girl intended to set in motion. The tale of a greedy elder sister trafficking her own younger siblings' tears. This scheme reeks of Cornelia's typical malice, though for her it's unusually intricate. Right now, the gems must be the star attraction. My role here is simply to provide the incriminating evidence that I was a willing participant in this criminal underworld. That is the sole reason I was lured here. And of course to provide the eyewitnesses who can swear they saw me in the flesh. She's already manipulated the masses who succumbed to her hypnotic charm. I need to orchestrate a graceful exit to finalize matters far more vital than mere rumors. Just as she anticipated, the illicit gemstones were showcased on stage. The auctioneer announced, "And now the moment you've all been craving. Allow me to present tonight's ultimate masterpiece." Cornelia approached the wings flanked by 2 armed guards. Masking her malice with that fake saintly face, she whispered, "Come now, don't falter. Someone has to finally teach sister that her wickedness has consequences." "Indeed, Lady Cornelia," a guard replied. "To track your criminal sister to such a den of vice, you are truly valiant and kind." Her only thought in this moment is, "Ha, I'm about to absolutely incinerate my dear sister." By now, she must be restrained by Sassa's thugs and forced into a front row seat of her own downfall. Without access to her gemstones, she's nothing but a defenseless puppet. And then she would waltz in and play the part of the shocked sibling utterly clueless about her sister's crimes. The respectable, radiant younger sister appeared, putting on a hollow show. Sister, what could possibly bring you to a place like this? I simply can't believe my eyes." If I shed enough tears, the entire room will be under my thumb. Regardless, the gems will be sold as contraband and sister will be trapped in the stands. No matter how much chaos she stirs or how she pleads, not a single soul will believe her lies. Besides, I've prepared a few lethal surprises for today. Pausing before the grand doors, she let a disgusting, triumphant smirk crawl across her face. "I've finally won, sister." Then she violently threw the doors open and shrieked, Sister, what are you doing in a..." The words died in her throat as she choked. Talk about a total clown moment. Because she didn't see Ingrid anywhere in the audience. "She's not here, how he swore he delivered her." At that exact moment, from the center of the stage, Ingrid spoke up. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" "I believe that's my line." Cornelia spun around in a blind panic. Ingrid, clutching a black diamond, pressed it against the rubies, and instantly those cursed gems crumbled into ash. The host could only clutch his head in absolute horror. Flashback moments before Cornelia burst in, Ingrid had already stormed the stage. With a black diamond in her grasp, she touched every ruby slated for the auction. The auctioneer could only howl, "Who the hell are you? What do you think you're doing to the merchandise?" The entire hall erupted into a violent frenzy at her interference. That was the moment Cornelia crashed through the door. "Sister, what are you doing in a... Wait, what are you doing? I believe I'm the one who should be demanding an explanation." Ingrid discarded her mask with a cold flourish. Cornelia was paralyzed with dread. She was spiraling, thinking, how is she still armed with her gemstones? She scrambled frantically onto the stage. "So the vile rumors were true, sister? Driven by sheer greed, you brought my gems here to hawk them to criminals." "You didn't have to sink this low, you could have just asked me..." Ingrid cut her off mid-sob. "My apologies for interrupting such a stellar performance, but if I were chasing profit, I wouldn't have vaporized them. I heard gems were being trafficked, so I came to purge them. It would be a catastrophe if these rubies fell into the wrong hands. The Jandon house is tasked with their safety. If you didn't bring them here, tell me who did." That's when she cast a piercing gaze down at the crowd. The mob was tearing her apart. Exactly who else but her? She destroyed them out of spite because she got caught. How pathetic. Poor Lady Cornelia. She's tarnishing the Jandon name just like she did the Beansmiths. Ingrid wondered, how did she manage to ensnare every person in this room with her charm? In response, Cornelia flashed a triumphant, smug grin. "Oh, sister, you really shouldn't weave such clumsy lies." She was untouchable because the mob was her shield. They chanted that she was the villain of the story. She was greedy, despicable, and a worthless shadow compared to the saintly Lady Cornelia. Suddenly finding herself the target of a witch hunt, she whispered, "Yes, dishonesty is a truly foul trait. The cold truth is that my tears have been commodified here. How repulsive." Ingrid revealed a cluster of rubies in her palm. She unleashed a powerful incantation to shatter the mass hypnosis. Instantly, the rubies in her hand erupted in a blinding celestial light. And just like that, every guest in the audience was snapped out of Cornelia's trance. Huh, where am I? Wait, what's going? Witnessing the crowd finally snap out of their hypnotic trance, Cornelia broke into a cold sweat. Impossible. How could my charm just vanish? Ingrid declared coldly, I have purged them of your influence. It seems the only one weaving a web of lies here is you. Ingrid realized this was the perfect moment to flip the script on public opinion. But instantly, Cornelia collapsed to the floor and lunged for her hand. Wailing hysterically, she sobbed, How could you be so cruel, sister? Why do you keep pinning your crimes on me? I risked coming to this den of vice just to save you. I was sick with worry, only for you to plunder the family gems. That's enough, Cornelia. She was putting on that same nauseating theatrical performance. The mindless sheep below began to murmur. Did Lady Ingrid really make her own sister cry? Wait, was Ingrid the one trafficking gems on the black market? Look at her, she's so cold she won't even comfort her. This was a variable Ingrid hadn't braced for. She had shattered the magic, but the girl's pathological manipulation didn't need a spell to work. She realized the world always chose Cornelia, not because she was right, but because Cornelia weaponized her tears for joy while Ingrid only wept in genuine despair. But does it always have to end like this? Why am I always the one left drowning in grief over people who aren't worth a single drop? No, I have to stand my ground and finish what I started. Ingrid stood there, trembling on the jagged edge of a breakdown, when a steady hand reached out to her. It was Winter. He whispered, You don't have to listen. You don't have to let those poisonous words in, Ingrid. Moments earlier, young Master Winter, the rear exits and secret tunnels are completely sealed per your command. Excellent. If anyone resists, inform them they are answering to the Clement name. Many of these guests were likely coerced into attending. I have no desire for this to spiral into further chaos. Understood, sir. We are ready to breach on your signal. Forgive my intrusion. He worried that she might reject his protection. Perhaps this is merely my own selfish desire to intervene, but her raw emotions have reached me. I have to protect her. I'll lead the way. You men follow. Just then, Gaspar shimmered into view. Well, well. That's a look of genuine concern I never expected from you. Since those fools are making such a scene, slipping in was a breeze, though I must say my arm is getting cramped from all this warping. Winter snapped, Enough chatter. If you're going to send me in, do it now. Gaspar snapped his fingers and Winter instantly dematerialized. He reappeared directly on a stage behind her, leaving the entire room paralyzed with shock. But in that moment, Ingrid was oblivious to his arrival, her face a mask of pure agony. Ingrid, have you been battling these hateful glares all on your own? Their judgment is utterly meaningless. He reached out and gently covered her ears. You don't have to hear another word of this filth. Ingrid gasped in bewilderment. Why are you here? Noticing her fingers were shaking, he took her hand firmly in his and said, Because I was worried about you. In a state of pure shock, she thought, Why does this man keep showing up to save me? Meanwhile, Cornelia, after being forced to watch this lovey-dovey spectacle, her fake tears dried up instantly. She seethed. Where did Winter Clement even come from? More importantly, seeing their fingers intertwined, she gnashed her teeth in a jealous rage. Just dropped dead already. With a face twisted by treacherous schemes, a new plot took hold. Fine. If I can't break her, I'll humiliate her in front of Winter himself. She immediately shifted back into her refined lady persona. Greetings, young Master Winter. Though you've been sheltering my sister, it's a tragedy that she's fallen so low. Explain yourself. My sister has committed an unpardonable sin, trafficking forbidden magic items at a criminal auction. I hear your accusations. However, it would be a grave injustice if I didn't hear Ingrid's side first. Ingrid felt the weight of his unwavering gaze. She knew exactly what her next move had to be. She stated clearly, It wasn't me. And I believe there's someone else who would like a word with you, right? Lady Barbara stepped into the light, directing a look of pure loathing at Cornelia. The crowd erupted into a fresh wave of hushed whispers. Lady Barbara, what is she doing here? From the stage, she projected her voice with authority. Let me be perfectly clear. I am not the type to frequent these gutter auctions. And I suspect most of you aren't either. We are only here because Lady Cornelia suggested it. Wait! Cornelia shrieked, realizing the tide was turning. Lady Barbara pressed on. Observe the gemstone on Cornelia's chest. Every time it pulses. That is the moment she is weaving her web of magic. Haven't you all experienced the same? Think back. Before coming here, every single one of you met with her, didn't you? Did that gem glow? If so, she came to me too? I can't even remember why I agreed to this. Why the hell are we even in this place? For perhaps the first time in her pampered life, Cornelia was the one drowning in judging glares. Her face went pale with terror. Still true to her never say die villain energy, she forced a laugh. No. I don't know what kind of joke this is, but you're taking it too far, Barbara. I had official business at the fair, so of course I met with people. Liar. If you're so innocent, show us that ornament. Why don't you try charming the crowd again, sister? What are you even blathering about? I have something far more potent than that. Ingrid manifested 3 distinct gemstones, each shimmering with a different hue. She smirked and asked, "How about it? Care to try crying in front of everyone together?" You're being incredibly selfish, sister. My tears only flow when I'm truly happy. So if you're demanding a performance right now, it's going to be quite the challenge. In that case, I suppose our little experiment is off the table. The truth was, Ingrid felt no sorrow in this moment, so the tears simply wouldn't come. Your game is over, Cornelia. At that exact second, the royal army stormed the hall from the main entrance. Young Master Winter. He leveled a piercing gaze at Cornelia, and only then did she realize she had been utterly checkmated. A cold realization hit her. No way, in Daimyo. Do they actually intend to put me in irons? I've never been fond of being the center of attention like this. She frantically lunged for Winter's arm, pleading, "Young Master Winter, you have to believe me. You're the type of man who weighs both sides. My sister is biased. She lives to spread lies." Winter looked down at her with eyes like ice and coldly brushed her hand off his sleeve. "Lady Cornelia, I find your character utterly incomprehensible. However, I believe I've gained a true understanding of her. Ingrid is completely innocent. As for the illegal trafficking of magical artifacts, the unauthorized use of forbidden sorcery, and finally the abduction of Ingrid Jandin." Winter signaled his elite guards to immediately arrest Cornelia Jandin. Just like that, the curtain fell on the illicit auction. Naturally, the high-ranking nobles who were ensnared by Cornelia's charm were escorted out by the royal guards. "Lady Ingrid, I sincerely apologize for my appalling behavior at the tea party. It's quite all right. You weren't acting of your own free will." With a glowing expression finally liberated from the mental fog, Lady Barbara beamed happily. "Then please, you must visit again with Lady Grace. I'll go handle those who are still in a daze." As for Cornelia, she was dragged away by the knights screaming, "I was coerced by Lord Sasa. I'm innocent. I am a mage of the House of Jandin. Do you have any idea the hell you'll pay for manhandling me?" If Sasa truly played a part in this, he would have meticulously scrubbed any evidence. Even if Cornelia escaped a dungeon cell, she likely wouldn't be permitted to set foot outside her manor for a very long time. Those words echoed in Ingrid's mind, "Because I was worried about you." She stole a glance at Winter, who asked softly, "Is something bothering you?" "It's nothing." "Then let's return home together." Lady Grace is frantic with worry. During the entire journey back, she couldn't stop sneaking glances at Winter's profile. Every time he caught her and asked, "What's wrong?" she gave the same quiet reply, "Nothing." Finally, summoning every ounce of her courage, she whispered, "Thank you." "There's no need for thanks. That den of thieves should have been dismantled long ago." "It's not just that." She reached out and tugged at Winter's sleeve. "I'm thanking you for actually believing in me." Only then did she realize she truly knew next to nothing about the man named Winter. "Is it because of your gift? Did you only trust me because of your ability?" "The rumors of me peddling illegal rubies? You knew I'd never stoop to that, didn't you?" With a shy expression, he countered, "How do I truly know a person?" Winter reflected on the vivid visions he had once witnessed. He said, "A person who instinctively rushes to save a falling child is incapable of such crimes, just like you did." Her heart suddenly skipped a violent beat. She wondered, why is my chest feeling so strange? Why is my heart racing like this? Why is it that even though I'm not sad, it feels like a flood of tears is coming? Despite her desperate attempts to suppress her emotions, a single tear escaped. The bizarre part was it transformed into a gemstone she had never encountered before. Until this moment, her tears of joy would always manifest as aqua gems. Tears of sorrow became black diamonds, while those born of hatred were the rubies of fury. And finally, the legendary catalyst for reversing time itself, the red diamond. But as for this mysterious new stone, its true nature remained a total enigma to her. Winter leaned in, reaching out to gently brush away her stray tears. The world seemed to freeze in that heartbeat. "What's the matter? Are you actually crying?" "Even if you are, they'll just crystallize into expensive gemstones anyway. It's hardly a crisis." "But are you seriously weeping? Good grief." He wiped her eyes with such vigor he nearly took her nose with it. Flushing with sudden embarrassment, she tried to play it off. "It's probably just the oppressive heat." She pivoted quickly, saying, "Lady Grace is waiting for us, so we'd better hurry back." He tracked her movements closely. "Your face is crimson. Are you all right?" Are you running a fever? I'm fine, seriously. Meanwhile, over at the Sasa estate. My lord, it appears Lady Cornelia has been officially taken into custody. He didn't even blink at the news, thinking only, I couldn't care less if that little operation succeeded or went up in flames. Even a failure won't touch me. They don't have a shred of concrete evidence against me, do they? Correct, sir. Even the hired muscle had no clue the Beansmith house was pulling the strings. Well, if word ever leaked that the Beansmiths were involved, I'd be facing the gallows too. Haha, Lady Cornelia, no matter how much you scream my name, Clement has no grounds to arrest me. I'm winning this game. He leaned back. You secured every ruby the lady offloaded at the auction, right? Yes, sir, minus the crate that was vaporized. Excellent. Then the Beansmith name will remain untarnished and unspoken. And is the other project progressing according to schedule? Yes, sir, it's nearing its final phase. Perfect. He sneered. Is Cornelia really just a bottom-tier mage? She hasn't the slightest grasp of how priceless those rubies actually are. Her only brain cell is dedicated to killing her sister. Pathetic. Ingrid, your sister wasn't content with just the auction. She sold your pain here too. These rubies are tears of pure wrath. I can't wait to see you truly enraged, Ingrid. Meanwhile, back with Gaspar. He was mesmerized by a specific ring glinting in his hand. Securing this piece had been his true objective for infiltrating the exhibition. The chaotic energy of the festival finally began to fade. The group returned to the Clement Manor. Though things were irrevocably changed, Ingrid tried to sink back into her routine. At that moment, Gaspar was face down in a pillow shooting a desperate look toward Ingrid. He groaned, You have to help me out here. First, explain exactly what you did. The story began. He thought back to that final night under the festival lights. He had stealthily bypassed several security patrols and utilized her ruby as a distraction to retrieve a ring. Ingrid's temper flared the moment she heard the details. Why would you waste a ruby on something like that? Again, have you learned nothing? And why on earth did you steal that ring anyway? I didn't steal it. I simply reclaimed what was mine. You secured the ring, so why the dramatic As it turns out, he had used it to propose to Lady Grace. Gaspar waved his hands frantically. It wasn't supposed to go like that. I realized the black market crew had returned before we even reached the mansion. Then I saw Grace. Why is she out front at this hour? Grace was pacing, muttering, Ingrid, are you safe? Please get home soon. Then Gaspar stepped into the light. Ingrid and the others will be back any second. Where have you been? Wait, were you actually worried about me? Of course I was. How could you vanish for days without leaving a single trace? You could have at least sent a message. In that moment, Gaspar revealed the ring. He slid it onto his pinky and let his hair fall loose around his face. When Lady Grace took in the ring and that distinctive violet blue hair, could you really be Gaspar? He offered a soft smile and took Lady Grace's hand in his. Then dropping to one knee, he whispered, Grace, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Everyone was absolutely floored by Gaspar's sudden romantic pivot. I'll leave my old life behind for good. I'll dedicate every day to your happiness. No, absolutely not. It was a staggeringly awkward rejection. And that was the reason Gaspar was currently contemplating life face down in a pillow. He certainly didn't need to be so brutally blunt about it. Anyone would be caught off guard if you dropped a bombshell like that so suddenly. But there was no alternative. I felt an irresistible urge to speak the truth right then and there. He projects an aura of strength, but even the strongest pillars have their breaking points. I understand. I'll attempt to reason with Lady Grace, but don't set your hopes too high. With that, Ingrid approached Lady Grace's chambers. Lingering at the door, she caught sight of the green gemstone and reminded herself she had a role to play. Well, here goes nothing. Although I'm a complete novice at romance, a direct interrogation is usually a disaster, right? I won't pressure Lady Grace. I'll gently steer the conversation, keeping it smooth and steady. Okay, she gave a soft knock. Lady Grace, may I enter? Is something the matter? After a moment of deliberate silence, she finally asked, Why exactly did you turn Gaspar down? Ingrid's sudden direct inquiry caused Grace to freeze in her tracks. Lady Grace could only gape at the audacity of the question. Up until this point, Ingrid had always been driven by cold, calculated self-interest. Ingrid has truly evolved. Well, the true master of the Ring of Goodwill possesses hair the color of a dark twilight. And your point is, are you familiar with the Tuyen clan? No. Come sit beside me. Let's unravel this mystery together. And so Lady Grace began to weave the tale. Long ago, the noble Tuyen clan was revered for their peerless magical prowess. They were a mysterious lineage always seen with the Ring of Goodwill and hair reflecting the crimson of a sunset. They remained elusive, yet in the world's darkest hours, they were its greatest saviors. But once peace was restored to the land, humanity grew cold and forgot their debts. Eventually, the Tuyen clan was framed for treason and systematically wiped out. However, in that dark era, the Clement family was the only one to raise a voice in protest. It was painfully obvious that the fabricated charges were a direct assault on the Tuyen clan. Weary of the betrayal, it seems they grew to loathe this cruel, mortal realm. They renounced their status and vanished into the shadows. That is how the legend ends, which means Gaspar is likely... They've probably carved out an unexpectedly peaceful existence far from here, haven't they? Ingrid realized that in that very moment, Lady Grace had deduced Gaspar's true heritage. But a story rarely provides the simple answers one craves. Grace sighed. Am I not the primary heir of the Clement house? If he intends to walk a path of thorns to revive his fallen clan, I cannot justify standing by his side. But is restoration truly what Gaspar desires? How should I know? How can I possibly give you an answer when you spring this on me? I may not look the part, but I've turned down plenty of high-profile proposals, you know. Besides, I'm not nearly as charming as you, Ingrid. Lady Grace... They are orphans in this world. Lady Grace had to forge herself into steel to protect Winter and the family legacy. Though she has a hidden weakness for all things cute, she has suppressed it for years. She stood up, abruptly grabbed the plush bear, and turned to leave. Wait, what? Ingrid suddenly thrust the bear into Lady Grace's startled arms. Then she whispered, I think Lady Grace is incredibly adorable. Oh, and for the record, Gaspar mentioned he has a thing for mature women. Grace was instantly flushed with embarrassment at Ingrid's words. That night, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Lady Grace is truly precious. Why has my heart felt so inexplicably warm lately? Furthermore, reflecting on the memories they shared, Ingrid felt a wave of bashful embarrassment wash over her. She reached beneath her pillow to retrieve a hidden emerald. Clutching the stone, she mused that while this gem is a simple emerald, it is bound to this newfound warmth. She worried she was becoming just like Cornelia, to be capable of shedding tears of pure joy. She whispered, It's like a fleeting, dreamlike happiness. Regardless of what this tear signifies, my sole mission is to unlock its true power. Meanwhile, at the Jandon estate, Cornelia was screaming in a fit of rage. Why, on what grounds am I being confined to my room? The servant replied tremulously, I am merely executing the master's strict orders. Then let me confront father myself. He is indisposed. He is extremely busy, so please do not approach his study. She was seething, realizing her own father was distancing himself to avoid the fallout of her scandal. Then get out of my sight now. With a violent shove, she knocked the servant aside and slammed the door. She stood in the suffocating silence of her room. Why is father shunning me? Why hasn't young Master Sasa made a move to save me? What lies is high society whispering about me now? Why is this happening? Why am I a prisoner? Isn't this exactly... And the way my sister used to live, now standing before the mirror, she lacked the courage to even face her own reflection. Slowly, painfully, she forced herself to look at the girl in the glass. I am completely alone. A wave of paralyzing fear and white-hot anger surged through her. In that moment of total isolation, tears began to well up and fall. This was the very first time she wept from genuine sorrow. This time her tear crystallized into a strange, unknown stone. Since this was a phenomenon never seen before, she had no idea what it represented. Among all the legendary mages of the Jandon bloodline who has ever cried emeralds, until this very moment, such a thing was considered impossible. Retreating to the bathroom, Ingrid studied the emerald, still oblivious to the true nature of its power. Since this was the only specimen of its kind, she had to calculate her next move with absolute precision. If I could somehow manifest another one, navigating this mess would be so much simpler. In the quiet, her mind inadvertently drifted toward memories of Winter. She sighed. We've barely crossed paths lately. It appeared he was buried in work single-handedly dismantling the black market's infrastructure. It's because of my drama that he's so overwhelmed. I wish I had a reason to see him. Thinking back to Lady Grace, that woman had certainly been vocal about her own feelings today. What about the two of you? The two of us? Grace had leaned in to whisper, It's about Win. Don't play coy, I see right through you. If I show up at Winter's door now, Lady Grace will never let me hear the end of it. It's not what she thinks at all. Meanwhile, inside his study, Winter was pushing himself to the limit. He knew many elites were revolting against the black market ban. The territory seemed calm, but Sasa will likely be breathing down my neck soon. Those repulsive mages, I need to keep my cool. Though not every mage is a monster, I haven't caught a glimpse of her recently, even though we're under the same roof. Tonight, I'll clear my schedule for dinner with her. Meanwhile, Ingrid stared at the horizon from her window. If I were to vanish amidst this peaceful scenery, would the gears of time actually reset? They probably would. I can't check out until this power is purged. Otherwise, everything just loops. If I watch the sun crest over that tower, could I find the strength to endure this cycle one more time? Ingrid! The sudden shout from behind made her jump. She spun around. Ingrid, there you are. Get this. Grace officially told me that we're on friendly terms. Talk about a plot twist. Maybe Grace is actually catching feelings. What's your take, Ingrid? Yeah, that's huge. But is there a reason you're here? Not at all. Haha, I see right through that face. Are you feeling a bit neglected? Is it because Winter is ghosting you, Bullseye? She flinched, her face heating up. Why would I... Wait, did I strike a nerve? You're completely delusional. Why does everyone... Lately, you've been spacey as hell. I am simply contemplating my future. You mean a future with Winter? If you're dying to see him that badly, just walk over to his office. You literally live in the same house. Are you even processing the words I'm saying? Look, if I lock it down with Grace and you marry Winter, wouldn't that make us family? Just put your faith in your future brother-in-law. Suddenly, a sense of impending doom washed over her. She turned to bolt. She managed to say, I'm leaving, but Gaspar snapped his fingers and Ingrid was instantly deleted from the room. She panicked. Where did he warp me? Then a familiar voice rumbled behind her. Ingrid spun in shock. Gaspar had teleported her directly into Winter's private quarters, and she was literally perched right on his lap. Both of them turned into statues for several long seconds. The eye contact was intense. Then Gaspar's parting words echoed in her head. Brothers have to look out for each other. So that was his play. So this was his help. That lunatic actually sent me here on purpose. Ingrid's head was spinning. 10 minutes of silence passed before Winter finally spoke her name. Only then did she snap out of it. I'm so sorry I'm moving right now. You seem so swamped lately, I was a little concerned. So that was Gaspar's excuse for worrying. She tried to scramble to her feet. As she prepared to flee in total humiliation, Winter caught her wrist. Stay a moment. Huh. I was just about to take a breather. If you can stay and keep me company. Okay. I actually wanted to express my gratitude regarding Grace. Thank me for what? Because I'm admittedly clueless when it comes to matters of the heart. You bridged the gap for me in that situation. If Lady Grace truly gives her consent, what will your move be? If Grace decides that's the path to her happiness, then I'll support her completely. But wouldn't you be left in total isolation? Her entire life has revolved around protecting you and this land. So if marriage is what finally brings her joy, she should pursue it without hesitation. Even if I still have zero trust in that phantom thief. You really share a deep bond with Lady Grace, don't you? Regardless, we're the only two siblings left in this manor. And now you are my only sister. Ingrid mused, if only Cornelia and I were both gifted mages. Would we have ever found a way to truly get along? Cut it out. I can't keep torturing myself with these pointless what-ifs. My sister and I, we were forced to be each other's anchors after our parents were taken too soon. Father was assassinated by a mage and mother's heart broke shortly after. Murdered by a mage, we're still hunting for the monster responsible. I'm still out here playing protector with elite mages fortifying our perimeter. With a curse like this, trusting a single soul feels like a death sentence. He's drowning in the shadows of his own power, yet he never stops guarding what matters. I'm starving for vengeance, but every time I pick up the trail, the culprit vanishes into thin air. So there's a mage out there capable of ghosting the entire Clement intelligence network. I'm sorry for ruining our rare moment of peace with such heavy baggage. It's quite all right. It's not just Lady Grace if the world ever turns against you. I'll be the one to pull you out. Never forget that. I'll always be here to shoulder your burdens. She thought, I'm acting so out of character right now. Thank you. In that case, I'd love to share another tea with you just like this. I'd like that. Later that night at Sasa's opulent estate, Sasa was awaiting a high-profile guest. The visitor turned out to be a physician. The white-haired doctor smirked. I've secured the merchandise. Felix had arrived, unveiling a mysterious vial. Behold! Sasa reached out greedily. You took your sweet time, Felix. Felix nodded with a grin and surrendered the vial. But he abruptly pulled back mid-exchange, making Sasa's face twist in irritation. Felix let out a dry chuckle. You look absolutely drained. If you're crashing, let me hook you up with a fresh dose. Sasa scoffed. Save it. I'm in peak condition. But internally, he seethed. That's exactly the problem. I'm not sick. I'm just haunted by the memory of that bastard's visit. He flashed back to their tense encounter a few days prior. Know your place, Lord Clement. He glared at Winter. Still haven't called off the abolition. I'm here to offer some free advice. Advice? How nauseating. Do I look like I need guidance from you? If you make another reckless move, well, let's not mince words. It seems you've successfully charmed the younger Jandon twin. Even without proof, don't underestimate the weight of my threat, Sasa. Sasa's jaw tightened as he suppressed a roar of fury. Then he forced a laugh. Is she the reason you've suddenly grown a spine? Winter remained stone-faced, ignoring the bait. I have to say I envy you hoarding those priceless gemstone tears for yourself. Sasa curled his lip into a sneer. Tell me, how many gems has she bled for you already? Only then did the realization hit Winter Sasa was talking about Ingrid. He replied with chilling calm. Ingrid's worth isn't measured in carats. Sasa shot back, in this world, gems are the only currency that matters. Without them, she's just garbage. He watched the flame dancing in his palm and smirked. Don't tell me. You're pretending to have no ulterior motives. Laughable. Wasting that kind of power is a sin against all mages. Winter's voice turned lethal. If you lay a finger on her... The fire in Sasa's hand was instantly extinguished as if by magic. Sasa flinched as Winter unleashed a wave of pure suffocating killing intent. If you touch her, I'll personally ensure you never cast a single spell again. Reliving that humiliation sent Sasa into a fresh fit of rage. Felix broke the silence. Lord Sasa, if you're truly unwell, I can return later. Sasa snapped, forget it, and snatched the vial. He examined the contents. Top tier work, Felix. I live to serve. It's just a concoction. It's not a miracle like your magic. Sasa took it as a compliment. It was only natural for a commoner to worship a mage. I appreciate your devotion to your betters. Sasa stared at the vivid blood-red flame in his hand. Yes, this is the divine miracle I was gifted. This isn't some cheap trick a non-mage could ever hope to replicate. Mages are the closest thing to gods walking this earth. And if you reach the pinnacle of our order, you essentially become God. Felix nodded in agreement, but Sasa cut him off. Enough. Don't curse our progress with ill omens until we've gauged the extent of his power. Felix smiled thinly. As you wish, Sasa mused. If he's truly omnipotent, my plan is already dead. No, even an omniscient god has limits. There's always a loophole. If he tries to swoop in and steal Ingrid away, I'll just have to prove I'm the ultimate mage by taking him down first. On this side, Ingrid was transfixed by the gemstone, realizing she finally had to test its limits to be certain. It would vanish the moment its power was unleashed. Honestly, she wished someone else could be the guinea pig to ensure it worked safely. Since it wasn't birthed from negative emotions, she hoped no darkness would follow. Ingrid wavered. Even so, who could she possibly trust with this? Suddenly, a voice cut through the silence. If you're in a bind, let me lend a hand. Ingrid spun around, startled. Sasa and Felix emerged from the shadows. He remarked on the glorious weather. You look remarkably revitalized today, Lord Sasa. If that's the case, then everything must be falling perfectly into place. Sasa questioned his meaning. Felix smirked. Why investigating Winter Clement's Achilles heel, of course. Sasa's lips curled into a grin. I'm not sure if his foresight has a ceiling, but I've begun to map out the blueprint of his power. Noting Felix's shock, Sasa elaborated first. It appears the Clement mages can pinpoint our every move before we make it, even sniffing out our deepest vulnerabilities. Under those conditions, most mages would simply surrender. That's why the Clement family's own weakness remains a total enigma. But I'm cut from a different cloth. I have to dismantle the mechanics of his omniscience. Is he telepathic? Can he intercept my words, or does he truly witness the future? When the rules are hidden, you must scrutinize every angle, even the slightest twitch of an opponent's face. Felix sighed. Sounds more like a grim experiment. Sasa laughed. Precisely. Forget the minor variables. I'll skip straight to the final conclusion of this study. Felix wondered, are you ready to disclose it now? No, because the timing isn't quite lethal enough yet. At that same moment, a cold dread washed over Ingrid. It felt like a conspiracy of silence was surrounding her. Don't fret. Everything is under control. This is strictly a family affair, so if someone is pulling the strings, it's definitely Sasa. If so, I carry the weight of this responsibility. Thanks to Abby, I finally grasped the mechanics of this gem. I'm grateful for our meeting. Please prioritize your health. This emerald will lose its luster the moment I invoke its power. So there's no logic in hesitating before I understand its true potential. Ingrid closed her eyes, whispering a soft incantation. Suddenly, a celestial light erupted around her, the stone pulse projecting a shimmering barrier that encased her form. She touched the edge, musing, does it function just as Abby described? Ingrid felt a surge of energy. A moment later, she returned to seek out Lady Grace. Grace called out joyfully, "Ingrid, I've been scouring the grounds for you. Where did you vanish to? I just needed a walk to untangle a few thoughts." "I see. Have you reached a verdict then?" Ingrid hesitated. Sensing her mood, Lady Grace suggested, "Then join me for tea. Training has left me completely drained." Ingrid nodded. Grace beamed. "I'm always left to my own devices here. It's dreadfully dull. Winter still hasn't returned. What on earth is that boy up to now?" "Yes." A knot of anxiety tightened in Ingrid's chest. "Lady Grace, my apologies, but we shouldn't talk while we're moving." Suddenly, the sharp bang of the door swinging open made them both freeze in their tracks. Grace turned around. "We were just discussing your whereabouts," but the words died as they both stared in horror. They were met with the sight of Winter's chest drenched in vivid bloodstains. Ingrid shrieked in terror, "Winter!" As she lunged toward him, Lady Grace caught her arm. "Stay calm, that's not his blood." Ingrid asked with a trembling voice, "It's not a fatal wound, is it?" Winter gave a curt nod. "Nothing serious." Lady Grace rushed down the stairs demanding, "Winter, what happened out there?" The carriage was intercepted and ambushed on the return trip. And again. Ingrid caught that, again, and her suspicion immediately flared. "I was told the Clement territory was a sanctuary compared to the capital. That explains why I've barely seen the guards lately." Grace looked at her brother with deep concern. "Is the threat neutralized?" For now, Winter's expression was dark and grim, but our people were caught in the crossfire. "Summon the physician immediately. I'll escort the wounded into the mansion now." Grace nodded and glanced back at Ingrid. "I'm sorry, but our tea party is officially postponed. Let Grace show you to your chambers so you can change." "Understood." Ingrid called out firmly. "Wait!" The two of them stopped and looked back at Ingrid, completely caught off guard. She met their eyes and insisted, "Let me examine the injuries." A short while later, Ingrid saw that the survivors had been roughly bandaged. Ingrid's brow furrowed with worry. "These lacerations are far too deep. Please, just give me a moment. I'll have this sorted shortly." With a determined look, Ingrid focused on the gem in her palm and pressed it against a wound. A radiant healing light flooded the room. In a heartbeat, the soldier's pale, agonized face regained its color. Ingrid moved swiftly to the next person. She applied the stone's magic to each of their injuries. "Whoa! The pain is completely gone. This is a straight-up miracle. My lady mage, we owe you our lives." Ingrid demurred. "It's nothing really, but the two of you still need a proper checkup from the doctor." She turned to depart. Seeing their exuberant joy, she glanced back to warn them to stay cautious. "You got it. I feel like I could run a marathon right now. Haha." "Me too." Winter observed the scene and let out a rare smile. Ingrid realized he'd been watching her. "I also wish to extend my deepest thanks to the master of the gem tier lineage." "Please don't. I'm not fond of that title." "My apologies, but I truly value your selflessness." Ingrid paused, locking eyes with Winter. "I was powerless. I couldn't even shield my own men. Despite saying I didn't need your gems, I ended up relying on your strength after all." Ingrid thought, "You're the one with the heart of gold. I'm just honoring my word. Besides, turning a blind eye to the suffering would be monstrous, wouldn't it? Most importantly, no more secrets." Ingrid asked point blank. This was Sasa's doing, wasn't it? Winter fell silent, averting his gaze to avoid the question. Ingrid pressed him harder. "Winter." He closed his eyes and gave a slow nod. "That's right. But this burden has nothing to do with you." Suddenly, a shout echoed, "Lord Winter, look at this!" One of the carriage attackers was carrying this vial. He held out a small container to Winter. Winter scrutinized it. "Is this blood? No, some kind of elixir? It seems we need a much more thorough investigation into this." Ingrid stepped closer, her eyes widening as she stared at the vial. It can't be. May I examine it?" Winter cautioned. "Do not open it." Ingrid held the vial for a second, and it suddenly erupted in light, shocking Winter. "It's reacting!" Ingrid realized with a sinking heart, "Now this incident officially involves me too." "What makes you say that?" Ingrid looked at the glowing vial. "Because this is my own tier."